Hello, everybody. It is Corey Poirier. Excited to be back here with a brand new Flip Your Script. Today is, of course, day 2, and we are aiming to help people flip their script once again. This is an exciting event for me. This virtual event, Elise and I started, I guess, back in early June, and Elise being my co-host, we started it back in early June and had such a great experience last time. We had thousands of viewers. Lots of people really engaged and had some comments that honestly, for some people would probably bring a tear to their eye, having people say what they heard, had them in tears. And that was for better and worse, because some people are saying because they wish they would have heard this stuff sooner, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you didn't hear it till today. Today's a fresh do-over. So to me, it would have been great to hear it before, but it's better to hear it now than not to hear it for another 4 or 5 years. So having said that, so our Flip Your Script event, every day this week, we're going to have different bLU Talk speakers and authors on. Today's no different. Essentially, we're going to have 3 per day outside of or other than Wednesday, where we're going to have an extra bonus guest. But essentially, same time every day, so you know when to tune in, 1 p.m. Eastern. And one of the things I want to mention before I welcome our guest, who is on the screen with me. Sometimes I wait to bring them on, but this time I brought her on right from the start. So I will introduce her soon, I promise. But one of the things I want to mention as well is if you want to follow us, you can find us over on YouTube now, the bLU Talks YouTube channel, which is pretty easy. It's bLU Talks. I'll start that over. YouTube.com /bLU Talks. So it's really easy to find that and find us there. So it's a direct YouTube link, which is great. And that's thanks to you guys, because you need a certain amount of subscribers to get the fresh link. But that's been going great. We've been putting up videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Today, in fact, that hasn't went up yet, but Tim Allison, one of my past co-hosts of the last event and really renowned podcaster, his video is going up today, and his audio. First time we've ever put bLU Talk speaker, their video and audio up on the podcast at the same time. So you can find us at blutalks.com. Right there is the YouTube link, or you can click on books, or you can click on the podcast to find everything bLU Talks. Or like I said, with the YouTube channel, you can literally type youtube.com /bLU Talks. So that's us. We do have the new bLU Talks book coming out this week. It's hitting Amazon this week. We already did the pre-sales. The book, I have no doubt, and I'm grateful for these authors, I have no doubt the book's going to be a bestseller. So I'm super stoked to watch that all happen. But that's bLU Talks in a nutshell. The idea behind bLU Talks is simply bLU, stands for Business Life Universe. We want people to talk about whether it's a business message, share their life story, talk about something related to the universe, which could be synchronicities, or it could be holistic healing, or things around new age or spirituality. And so that's bLU Talks in a nutshell. The idea behind Flip Your Script, to kind of bring this all to a close, is essentially change your thoughts, change your life, which is the idea that if you change your thinking, then you have the ability to change your outcome and your results. And that's really what it's about here with the Flip Your Script virtual experience. So having said all that, now, my preamble, I now want to bring on our first guest. She's actually going to be presenting, which we mix it, as people know who've watched us before. We mix it between interviews and presentations. I really dig the presentations because I get to sit back and watch. I like both, but I really dig the presentations. And so Lisa Wilson, I'm so excited to have you here with us. And Lisa, what I think I'm going to do, since you're presenting, is rather than steal any of your thunder, I think I'm going to actually pass it over to you to introduce yourself in terms of just telling us a little bit about your backstory and your journey. But I will say that Lisa has already been a part of bLU Talks for a little bit now. She's involved in one of the bLU Talks in the book series chapters. She's also, this is her first time on the virtual event. She is going to be on the podcast soon. She's already been profiled on the Insider newsletter. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but have you been interviewed yet on the Inside the Video? Okay, so that's coming up soon too. Yeah. So what I'm getting at with this is you're going to be able to hear and see lots from Lisa in the coming months. So Lisa Wilson, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you take it away and give you about 20, 25 minutes to present, and then I'll come back on and just tell you about any comments, ask any questions I have, any questions Elise might have, and we'll play it by ear from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey.
So take it away, Lisa.
Thanks, Corey. So as Corey said, my name's Lisa Wilson. I'm a human resources cultural consultant and a leadership vision coach. And what does that all mean? I just like to give myself interesting names. But what it all means is I work with small to medium-sized companies because I had a long career in human resources. And the one thing I saw over and over is that when you go from doing the job to leading others doing the job, it takes a whole other skill set. And so that's where I come in. I help small to medium-sized companies move into that skill set. I help their leaders move into that skill set. But that's not at all what I'm going to talk to you about today. I loved the idea of bLU Talks. I love Corey's brand. I think business, life, and universe, all three fit together so well, and you can't have one without the other, and they all affect each other. So I love that Corey's doing this, and this flip your script is great, or as Wayne Dyer says, and Corey said it before, was change your thoughts, change your life. And to stay with that theme, I thought the best thing I could do was tell you my story around this. And I don't really love sharing this story again, but I will, because it wasn't the best time in my life. So 6 years ago, I had half my thyroid removed. You can't really see the scar as well now, but it's still there. And when I went in to see the doctor after the surgery, and hopefully I can do this, but you won't see all of me. When he went to tell me what happened in the surgery, he had his head in his hands and his elbows on his knees. This is not the position you want a doctor in when he's about to give you feedback. And I thought the worst was coming, but he'd actually already told me that what he'd pulled out wasn't cancerous. He does this so often that he knew what he'd pulled out wasn't cancerous. So I thought, what could he want to tell me right now? And what he wanted to tell me was that the thyroid lump that they thought was growing really quickly. So the only reason mine was being removed is because they thought it had grown from 2.4 centimeters to 4.2 centimeters in 6 months. Now I need to explain something for those of you that don't know. Many women, actually most women, we have thyroid lumps. It's just a thing. We live with them. Often we don't even know about them because they don't really affect our health that much, and they're very, very slow growing. Mine, for some reason, they thought had grown really quickly, and 4 centimeters is when you start to worry about it. So when it got there and it had grown so quickly, they said, okay, we're going to take it out. But what he had to tell me that day and why his head was in his hands is because it hadn't grown. What they took out was 2.4 centimeters. Not exactly what you want to hear. So I haven't been myself since then. Was told it would take about a year and I would come back to normal or come back to how I felt prior. I never did. And it's been 6 years. I was the person who used to do P90X and CrossFit and mountain biking and snowboarding. And I used to do canoe trips where I'd have a backpack on my back and the canoe on my back. Like I'm quite strong and I had lots of stamina. Not anymore. Now I can walk my dog for 20 minutes and do 10 minutes of some other form of strenuous exercise. And to be clear, that other 10 minutes could be yoga. So other strenuous exercise means anything that involves more muscle than walking. It's a really difficult tired to explain. And the first time I told this story, I did it on a stage and someone came up to me after and she gave me a really great term for it. We call it cellular tired because it's not a tired that you can take a nap from. You're just tired right to your core. Your legs don't want to move. Your brain doesn't function well. And I spent days and days on the couch. Now, I used to work full-time, run my business part-time, and volunteer, Carroll, do all these different things. And now I could work 3 days a week at the most. And if I'd worked out during that time, I might have to spend 2 complete days on the couch. When you're doing this, you can't watch anything that requires your thought. I was watching TV and the best I could watch was a Disney movie. And it still happens now. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it took a long time for me to come there, and less it being about my personal journey or my health journey and more of it being in my head because I needed to change my thoughts. So I fought this new reality for a really long time. I'm embarrassed to say how long. It was a good 4 years. I kept trying to go back to who I used to be. So I would walk my dog, I would do my 10 minutes of exercise, and then the next week I'd be like, okay, keep doing 10 minutes for a couple of weeks, and I'll move to 20, and then I'll move to 30. Nope, back on the couch. And I did this more times than I want to admit. I just kept trying to go back and be the person that I was before, but my body absolutely would not do it. And I fought it and I fought it for a really long time. I was also trying to run a business because I didn't mention that this all happened 6 months after I moved into running a business full-time from home. So the other thing I'd done in that time was I joined a whole pile of volunteering places because I'd gone from being in an office all day to being at home by myself. So now I was alone too often. So I joined all these service groups. And that was just now sucking my energy, trying to run a business, trying to be there in all these service groups. I couldn't do it all. I couldn't exercise either, but I couldn't get all of these things done because I couldn't focus. So I was being really careful about when I booked clients, when I booked speaking engagements, and making sure that there weren't two on the same day because one would knock me out. Then, to add to my fun, because I like to do that, 3 years in, I had my boyfriend and his 2 kids move in. They were teenagers. So if you are a parent of teenagers, you understand. If you are the step parent of a teenager, you understand even better. Those first couple of years of them living here were very difficult for all of us. Now, when I needed to rest, I couldn't. So there was no sitting on the couch and doing nothing. So the thing about kids is they need to eat every day. My boyfriend works shift work and it's 12-hour shifts and it's a 5-5-4 schedule. So 5 on, 5 off, 4 on, and then they continue through that. So for half the month, he wasn't here. So I was cooking for them. I'm not allowed to say that I do all the cooking because I certainly don't. He does the bulk of it. But when he wasn't here, I had to do all of that. So there was no just resting. I had to be up and I had to be there for the kids. It didn't look pretty at that point. I became someone I didn't even recognize anymore. I really didn't like who I was becoming. I had no energy. I had no patience for the kids. And at one point, Serge and I were arguing over something. Well, we weren't arguing. I was ranting because Serge doesn't argue back. So it was just Lisa ranting. And I just felt so awful. We were sitting outside and I couldn't even stand up to talk to him anymore. I sat down on the stairs and now I looked like the doctor and I had my head in my hands and said, I don't even like who I've become now. And it happened again a few months later where I found that thought going through my head again. I don't like who I've become now. And it was the same thing again. I was trying to come down to my office and Serge and I were talking and I just couldn't even stand up anymore. I was so tired and so frustrated with everything and I didn't have the energy to do what I wanted to do. And I just thought, I don't even like me anymore. And then a few months later, it continued. That clearly wasn't enough to get my mind understanding that something needed to change. It was a few months later, I was lying in bed and I watched the thought run through my head that I want to die. And that was enough for me. For some people, they actually make plans or other things. But for me, just that thought running through my head, I was like, whoa, I don't even know who I am anymore because that's not who I am. If you talk to people that know me, I'm the most positive person they know. And people tell me that all the time. And little do they know what was happening behind the scenes. I actually practiced a shorter version of the speech last night, and someone who was in my life was listening. And the look on his face when I said that while he knew me, I had wanted to die. So this was, we meet up for Toastmasters every Monday. He's there. And the look on his face when he heard me say that, he was absolutely shocked because no one would believe that I was feeling that low. And that's when everything started to change. And I knew I needed to make a bunch of changes. I didn't know how or what that looked like, but the rest of the story, I have to give you the background, but the rest of the story is how I have come through it. And I like when people put things in little compartments, so I'll do that for you. So effectively what I had to do is I had to accept what is. I had to get help. I needed to listen to my own intuition, and then I needed to be selfish. And all of these things this in the whole flip your script. I had to change my thought to a lot of things, and I'll go through and walk through in each one what I had to change. And some you'll see they kind of connect into each other. So the first one was accepting what is, and this came in 2 forms. So the first was probably the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. I'm incredibly driven. So even while I'm sick, I'm still learning piano. Like I said, I was on several boards. I was on the board with Rotary. I was on the board with Toastmasters. Actually, we were rebuilding a club in Toastmasters where I live. And I sat on my Human Resources Professionals Association board, the local chapter board. And I was doing all of this stuff, and that's how driven I am. So even when I'm this tired, I was still getting all of this stuff done. This is why people didn't even know what was happening behind the scenes. And I had to decide that I needed to stop some of this. And I couldn't be that driven person anymore. The hardest decision you'll ever make is whether to keep pushing forward or whether to stop or quit, is how I felt it. So first thing I did was I recognized that now I'm depressed. Now, this was a hard thing for me, very, very hard thing for me to admit, because a year after the surgery, I had switched my family doctor. And the first thing she said to me is, when I told her how tired I was, she said, well, maybe you're depressed. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know my background. And I said to her, okay, well, pills for me are a last resort. So what would we do if I was depressed? And she said, well, cognitive behavioral therapy. I said, okay. Just so you know, I'm a life coach. And for the last year, while this has been happening, on the days that I'm sitting on the couch, I'm repeating to myself, your life is good. You're just tired. Your life is good. You're just tired. And she went, oh. So for 2 years later, for me to admit that now I just overwhelmed myself and had gotten to a state that I was depressed was really not an easy thing to do. But that was number one. Once I put a name to it, I knew what to do to get out of it. Now, I don't tend to go into chronic depression. I've as everyone else, I've had depression through my life, but mine are more acute, which means they're shorter lived. I have them, then move out of them. And admitting that was huge. So the moment those thoughts went through my head, was lucky enough to be in a mastermind at the time with some really supportive women. I went and I shared with them, and they were so understanding, and it was so helpful. They didn't judge me. They didn't try and make me feel better. They didn't do any of that. They just listened. And then I talked to some of my family members and some of my friends. So that was number one, is understanding that at this point, yes, now it had become depression. I was just so struggling with where I was and who I'd become that I'd slipped into that depression. Then the next thing I needed to accept was where my body was, and that I no longer was going to be the person who did P90X and CrossFit and all of those things. And really, 20 minutes of walking and 10 minutes of exercise is enough. It just wasn't what I was used to. And I had to review that and just accept that that's what I could do for now. I'm not saying that that's going to be me forever. It's still me now. It's 6 years later, and that's still as much as I can do without being exhausted the next day. But that's okay. So one of the things is I held this belief about health. And my understanding of health was that I had to be able to do CrossFit and P90X and all of these extreme sports. That meant I was healthy. I've had to change my belief on that one to realize that no, healthy means feeling good in your body. And right now for me, I feel good I still feel good if I go snowboarding or something like that, but I don't feel good the next day. The next day I can't move. It's like the worst hangover you've ever felt, but it's not a headache. It's just your total body won't move. And so I now have to decide how I want to feel. It's just like deciding whether you want the next drink, knowing you're going to have a hangover the next day. I have to decide how much exercise I'm going to do, knowing how I'm going to feel the next day. So just, and it sort of fits here, but the other thing is, when I want you to think about when you think about diet isn't just about food. Diet is about who you're letting into your life, what you're reading, what you're watching on TV, and how you choose to spend your time. So I've had to choose to spend my time in very different ways now. Obviously, I used to spend a lot of more time outside doing all these different things. Now I had to choose what I was going to do inside, and sitting and watching movies, while great, sometimes doing it too much doesn't put me in a good headspace either. So that's the accepting what is, as hard as that is. And I think that's probably the hardest decision always in life, is whether you push forward or whether you just accept what is. And for me, it really did feel like defeat at that point. doesn't anymore. But at that point, accepting that all I could do was that for exercise was really feeling like I was defeated a little. The second thing is getting help. So all of this was new for me, and it was a whole new concept, nothing I'd ever thought through. And I had coaching background at this point. So, but when you have to change how you view yourself, it is a huge change. So I got the help. So I already mentioned that I had the women in the mastermind who just listened. They didn't try and make me feel better. They didn't do any of that. They just listened. I had the support of family and friends. And the thing is, I also mentioned, and I'm going to just mention it again here, is people don't know. So I said this story last night. This guy that I was watching, or that was listening to me talk last night, the shock on his face when I think he did the math that, oh, wait a minute, this is in the last couple of years. I knew her then. I knew her when this was going on, and he had no idea that this had happened. And if you don't go ask for help, no one's going to know you need it, because we're all so busy in our own world, we don't know. So the other realization that I had to accept was that the medical community wasn't helping me. As far as the medical community is concerned, I'm healthy. All my numbers are fine. There's been a few things here and there, and if we have some time at the end, maybe I'll share some of it. But there's been a few things. There's been a few things that have happened since that where my numbers are a little off or something, but it's always symptoms of the bigger problem. It's never been anything that went forward. So I had some problems with blood sugar and things like that, but they were always because I wasn't eating well, that kind of thing. But the reality was I wasn't getting the help I needed. I started to see a naturopath. She was very helpful. But for a driven person like myself, her methods were too slow. I wanted a quick fix and I wanted it now. And you can understand when you're a really driven person, suddenly not having the energy to do things. I just wanted an answer. I wanted a doctor to tell me what it was, or someone to tell me what the problem was so we could just magically fix it. And there isn't anything. There's nothing, according to medical community, there's nothing wrong with me. And so this is where I come to the fourth point, is you need to listen to your intuition. And I'm going to start with a couple of other times in the story where I didn't listen to, and then I'll explain where I was going with that. So several times in my backstory, I didn't listen to my intuition. So one of the things I didn't share with you is 3 months before the surgery, I had a panic attack. I'm not prone to panic attacks. I'm really not. I can count on less than one hand how many times in my life I've had a panic attack. And this one is still very vivid in my mind. Actually, each one of them are very vivid in my mind because it doesn't happen very often. But I was in my car, I was driving by our grocery store, and my whole body just like tightened up. And the thought went through my head, do not have the surgery. Don't do it. And the next thought was basically pushing that thought away. Don't be ridiculous, Lisa. He's a great surgeon. You're going to be fine. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. He's a really good guy. And by the way, he is a really good guy. The surgeon that did this, it's not his fault. It was, we think it was a misreading on the ultrasounds. Actually, I don't know if I did mention that it was an error. But, and so that thought just immediately pushing my own instincts away. I didn't stop there though, because I'd had that panic attack. I went and got a second opinion. And this is the other time I didn't listen to myself. When I went for the second opinion, I got all of my ultrasounds on a disc, and I was sitting with this doctor, and I wanted to hand him this disc because he was appeasing me. He was saying, yeah, I can feel the lump. You should probably get it out. Don't worry. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to affect you. And I wanted to hand him the disc, and I never did. I came home with the disc. Now, possibly if I'd handed it to him, he would have had someone read it and seen the typo, what we think is a typo. And again, not listening to my own instincts. Not helpful. So where I was going to prior with when I was talking about getting help is the last piece around listening to my own instincts and the getting help was I'd now given up on the medical community. While my naturopath was very helpful, I wasn't getting to where I needed to fast enough. And a friend of mine was very ill and had seen a medical intuitive. And she's actually the one who told him what was wrong with him. And when he took it to the doctor were able to diagnose what he had. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to this medical intuitive. And I did. And she told me a few things. And the worst thing she said to me was, Lisa, I'm not telling you something that you don't already know. And she wasn't wrong. I did already know everything she had told me. And so here's what I've learned about your intuition is some people just have like feelings or thoughts that come to their head, and that's their intuition, and they're really good at listening to it. Others, like me, were not so good at listening to it, so it shows up in a different way. Now, in the case with what was going on with the medical intuitive, she had said to me two things. One, I was full of candida, which is like it's a yeast that builds up in your body. And the second was that I should follow a keto diet after doing a cleanse for the candida. I should follow a keto diet, and that would be healthier for me, and that my body would handle a keto, like a fairly close to a keto diet, very well. And how this showed up for me in my intuition is that both of those things kept coming to me. I kept seeing things about, just in either my Facebook feed or on LinkedIn or friends talking about it. I kept seeing things about both candida and keto. And I kind of knew, hey, as I was reading the stuff about candida, hey, maybe this is what I have. And I think my naturopath and I had even talked about it, and I was on something with her that was supposed to help it. But I, again, wasn't listening. I wasn't getting the information that I wanted. So hearing it from this medical intuitive, I was like, oh, yes, I do know. And I've been seeing all that information. So think of it like, have you ever gotten a car? So you get a new car and you think you've got this new fancy car that no one around has. And I happen to own a white car. So you buy this white car and you think there's no white cars out there. I'm going to have this new fancy car. It's going to be very unique. And then suddenly you're driving around and there's 1,000 white cars because your brain is paying attention to those things. But sometimes it goes backwards. Your brain is catching the things that your intuition wants you to see. So when it's the car, it's because you're now looking for white cars. But sometimes your intuition does it in the reverse. Hey, you should buy a white car, and you start seeing more white cars. And then you know you should buy the white car. So that's how my intuition speaks to me sometimes. And I forget to listen still at times, but I'm getting better. And just to share with you quickly, well, actually, I'll share after if we still have time. But the last piece is to be selfish and show up for yourself. So there was a lot of stuff that happened here, and a lot of changes that had to happen. That some of the biggest things were, how were others going to feel about me now? So keto diet has no sugar and very little carbs, which means the cookies that I always make for Christmas and the brownies that I always make for Christmas are not things I need to have around. And suddenly not being the family baker meant a huge change in who I was. And I mean, obviously my family isn't going to stop loving me because I don't make cookies and brownies, but it takes away part of your identity. Auntie Lisa shows up with cookies. You come to my house, there's cookies and brownies in the freezer always. Those aren't there anymore. And it was hard to accept that. It was hard to accept that that wasn't going to be able to be the case anymore. And that's where I talk about somewhat being selfish. You need to be selfish in those ways. You need to do these things that you need to do for yourself. I would go away, and now knowing that how much better this diet made me feel, I now had to work around it, either carry food with me or talk to where, if I was going to stay at someone's house, talk to them and say, look, this is the diet I have to follow. I'm happy to bring my own food. Just want to talk to you about what we're going to be eating tonight, that kind of thing. I am now the lady who carries a quinoa salad in her purse. I used to have to fly to Toronto on a regular basis right around noon. I live in Ontario, so it's not that far of a flight, but it was right around noon. And obviously there wasn't really anything on the plane that I could eat. So I used to bring a quinoa salad in a little container and put it in my purse. But that's what I need now. And as much as people thought I was crazy, I have had many people laugh at me on the plane with my purse salad, but it doesn't matter. It's what I need. And that's okay. That's what I need to take care of myself. And I need that. And I need to remain and keep that important. Keep that important and keep that as a boundary. because anything else just makes me feel terrible. So I'm seeing all the people saying hi, so hello. But so you might be wondering, I did introduce myself at the beginning and talked about how I'm a leadership coach. And you might be wondering why I share this story as a leadership coach. And the reason is this. We are, as a leader, you not only have to lead others, you have to lead yourself. And if you're not leading yourself well, you're not going to be able to lead others. And how you're leading yourself changes from day to day. So when I had all of the energy in the world, how I was leading myself, that worked very well. Now it doesn't work so well. I have to handle myself in a very different way. I have to accept that when I'm tired, I need to rest. And I can't push through, because the other thing that happens to me is when I get tired, if I push through, I've had this explained to me, and someone probably can explain it better. I'm certainly not very good at this part, but what happens is my cortisol rises. So it keeps me going. But then the thing is, once my cortisol rises that much, it won't come down. So I'm running and I'm on this high, but my head is exhausted, my body is exhausted, but I can't sleep because the cortisol is running. And so I can't push anymore. The moment I get tired, I have to find very quickly a time where I can rest. And because of that, I've had to change a lot of things in my life. So how I led myself before I had the surgery and how I lead myself now are very different, which also helps with how I lead teams, because I am far more understanding of people now. I probably was before, but even more so now. When someone tells me they're tired, I understand it in a very different way. So I'll go back to that quick story. So I did a cleanse a little while ago, which were not something I ever believed in. And I think we're doing okay for time, but it was not a big thing I believed in. But I did the cleanse, and some people tell you something and you know something, but until you actually live it and feel it, you don't really know. Well, I did this cleanse, and I'm a curler, good Canadian. I curl. And doing that, I had to change I even had to change that. I now had to be the skip, which is the person that stands in the house with the broom, because I couldn't sweep anymore. I just didn't have the energy to do it. And I really missed that, because that's how I get rid of stress. That was one of the other things for me, is how I get rid of stress is exercise. So I would go to these I would curl every week, one game, fine. But then I'm, again, driven. So I'm competitive. I would go to competitions. And by the end of the week, because I couldn't exercise anymore, my legs weren't as strong as they used to be. And by the end of the weekend, my leg would be in so much pain. That one year I barely could walk off the ice. Like, I wasn't sure. I got down to the change rooms, but I wasn't sure I was coming out. Like, it was that bad. I was in excruciating pain, and it wasn't helping. I'd already had Advil, so that I couldn't take another one. And I did this cleanse after seeing this medical intuitive, I did this cleanse, and I went to a curling tournament. My legs weren't any stronger at that point, and certainly I still felt the ache of overuse, but the pain was gone. So I had all this inflammation that had left my body. So again, just another thing that I had to learn, that, you know what, it's not just exercising. It doesn't mean you're healthy. When I was exercising, I was in extreme amount of pain, and I was in pain because what I was eating wasn't good for me. That's just a little aside, but I'm seeing lots of comments, but I don't think I saw any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. There was something else I had said I would go back and share later if we had time. I'll see if I can think what that is. Not sure. But anyway, part of the point to this is just, when we talk about flipping your script, for me, it's not just one thing. It's a lot of different things. So sometimes it's a belief that we hold. It's an identity that we hold on ourselves too. So I had learned from, like I said, I do coaching. So I follow Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, all of these different people. So I knew enough to do like mantras to do the flip your script. And I knew enough to do that. But when it came time to changing the identity pieces, that was way harder. You can't just say a mantra for that. It just really didn't work. So flipping your script comes in a lot of different ways. It's the beliefs you hold. So from my example, the belief about what healthy is, For in some cases, it's an identity you hold. So I'm the girl with lots of energy that exercises and gives in a lot of way, gives of my time. I show up for people. That was one of the other things that happened to me is I couldn't show up for people anymore, which was very frustrating and difficult. I forget things now. I'm not as good at remembering birthdays as I used to be, but it just is. It's just where I'm at. And I feel a ton better now. I'm able to do the exercises a lot easier now, but it's still when I'm tired and I'm done, I'm tired and I'm done. So I'm just going to check in the private chat if there's anything, comments. No. Okay. So no questions at this point. Anyway, Corey, this is a great experience and a great group of speakers, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. Oh, there's Elise. Yes, it's a lot about the belief at the root and how we identify with how, who, and what we are. It's how we perceive ourselves in relationship to. Absolutely. It was just such a big switch for me. And like I said, it took a long time. And that my drive, that part of me that's so driven, which has been really, really positive in my life up till this point, that drive is now very negative because I drive too hard sometimes. I'm learning to now balance that drive so that I'm not exhausting myself all the time. When I had all the energy, it wasn't a big deal. So, hey, Corey. Oh, you're on mute, Corey.
There, should be able to hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do this every time. I turn the mute on so that I'm not disruptive if I'm responding to somebody, so you don't hear a little typing in that. Nice. But having said that, I wanted to say, for lack of a better way of saying it, you absolutely crushed it, Lisa. And there's a couple things I wanted to comment on in relation to what you were just talking about, because there's some stuff that I can totally resonate with and relate to. For instance, one of the things that you talked about was you mentioned about it's not just the food that you eat. Mm-hmm. And so one of my talks is actually about going on a news detox. Nice. And so that's something that really speaks to me, because I've seen the difference in my life and actually health-wise in my mother's life, because my mother was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And 18 years later, the biggest thing that she changed, and was based on the doctor's recommendation, was to stop watching and reading the news.
Oh, and, awesome.
Yeah, so the doctor actually gave her a prescription note, and she didn't know what it was. And when she left and she looked at it later on, after leaving the doctor's office, it said, "Don't watch or read the news." So this is a medical doctor who felt that the news is that powerful. And when she asked him why he said that, he said, "Because I've noticed that the patients of mine that don't watch and read the news have the best chance of putting cancer in remission." So first of all, I want to say, when you talked about that, that's a huge thing. Another thing you talked about as far as the change in the way that you're eating and living and how you had to change those things, I can totally relate to that as well, because and it's not really, I don't even know if it's a diagnosis, but I've had the doctors tell me that I have hypoglycemia. Okay. And I know we all, if we don't eat, we have hypoglycemia. But the difference is, if I go 2 or 3 hours or anywhere past that without a small snack or anything, my blood sugar starts going low on its own. Oh. And interestingly enough, my son, we just found out, actually has a thing called MCAD, which is when your blood sugar goes low on its own, and his goes dangerously low, like way lower than mine. Okay. And so much so that my girlfriend has to breastfeed him every 3 hours around the clock.
Wow.
So when you're saying that, I totally can both relate, and I also know our lives going to change again, because I had to change my life in terms of eating small, healthier snacks and what have you. But now we're going to have a son who doesn't even have the luxury I have, because I can do it, and it's not very noticeable if I do it, if I eat better. Mm-hmm. But with him, it sounds like his whole life is going to be, he's not going to be able to have certain types of fats because his body won't break it down. Yeah. So anyway, what you're saying, I totally resonate with, and I'll add this, would have taken for granted years ago. And I think a lot of us, it's easy for us to take all these things for granted. And it sounds like you've now learned that you can't take them for granted anymore. You have to listen to your body. So having said all that, I wanted to say all that just to say it resonate with that. But let me ask you, do you find that you're more in tune with your body now? And do you find that it actually has made you healthier overall? I mean, obviously, I know, as you said, you still can't go for long periods like an hour working out or anything. But do you find you're healthier in general when you talk about just your temple of your body?
Yeah, definitely. Like things I used to be able to handle, I just can't now. And I sometimes make the choice to do them anyway. Just like I said, it's a choice now, like deciding to drink that one more drink. Oh, I know if I drink this one more drink, I'm going to be hungover. But for me, it's like, I know if I eat this little chocolate, I'm going to feel hungover tomorrow, because I do. But I'm definitely more aware now, especially about when I'm tired. My boyfriend's actually really helpful. He said to me at one point, he said, "I can see it coming, Lisa." And I said, "Well, then say something." He said, "What?" And I said, "No, really." I said, "You're not helping me by standing back and getting nervous that you know I'm going to crash. Say, Lisa, you're about to crash. I see it coming." I said, "Because I don't see it. I am so goal focused that I don't see it sometimes. I am getting a ton better at it. It's still a process, though, I'll say. And I'm still careful. Like this morning, I made sure this morning's clear, and I'm still careful how much I put in a day. And if I do put more than one thing in a day, I'm really careful what I do between. So I will like just go have a nap between, even if I'm not tired. When I finish this, if I had another client after, I would go have a nap, just tired or not, just rest myself so that I fully have energy at the other end.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. With that, as far as when you mentioned about your boyfriend can notice it, but you might not. I have a friend, and I mean, I won't say a whole lot because I don't want to out him on this, but he has diabetes, and he's had it since he was, I think, like 10 years of age.
Okay.
And he actually, interestingly enough, his dog starts freaking out whenever he's having a bout. Actually, I'll say before the diabetic seizure kicks in, the dog runs to the closet and starts hiding and digging, and so it wakes up his girlfriend to know that that he's about to go into an attack. And it's so amazing to me that the dog has the intuition to do that.
Yeah, I think mine does too, actually. When you're just as you started to say that, my dog will be more protective of me when I'm tired. So he actually barks more, and he barks at anyone that comes near me. And which is not always the case, but like if I'm laying on the couch and my stepson goes and runs by or something, he'll be more likely to bark at him. Just like, stop, leave her alone, calm the house down. Not that it helps the dog, but when the dog's barking, but I think he does know. I think he recognizes it as well, which is so interesting.
Yeah, I think it just goes to the fact that two things. One, how much animals really serve us without us realizing it. But I really believe the other side is energy. For anybody that doubts there's such a thing as energy,
oh yeah,
just watch children, babies, and dogs, and then tell me that there's no such thing as energy. Because you've probably seen whenever there's a person somewhere that they can never pick up babies, but everybody else can.
Yes.
Or a dog that won't let one person in your yard, but let everybody else, and they'll never let that person in. Yes, it could be fear, but that's still an energy. So to me, this is proof that energy exists.
Oh, I fully believe that. And I think we've gone too far from that. And I do some training courses around communication and stuff. And one of the things I always say to people is humans have too many words. Because there is no question when a cat is upset with you. They hiss at you and you know to stop whatever it is you're doing. But with humans, we have all these words and we try and be nice and we try and whatever. I was like, life would be so much easier if we just hiss at each other. Then you just know, right? It's so clear. But there is the whole thing too. I really do think that they know energy. My dog will start flipping out, but like 20 minutes before a storm hits, we're still looking at the bright sunny sky and he's getting upset. And I was like, I know what it is, but yeah, he feels that energy way before it's arrived. The rest of us still think it's a nice sunny day.
Well, such a great point, because I have to say too that as far as the side of the cat giving us warnings,
yes,
we have my son is 3, and about 6 months ago he started realizing there's a cat in the room with him. Like he didn't notice at first. We had a dog, and when he was let's say up to about age 1.5. The dog was older, so our dog passed away. But up until that point, he would drag the dog around the room, and it was such a passive, a silky terrier, so passive. His name was Sprocket, and he let the kid do anything to him. Anyway, the cats, they don't feel the same way.
No.
And so my son will go and try to pet my cat that I've had. She's like 12 now. Her name's Tantra, and we also have her brother. The brother, the kid can never get near him. He won't let him. But the cat, Tantra, the female cat, he goes and pets her, and she starts growling, and like you can hear that deep like, and then she starts meowing, and we're basically telling him stage 1 is her growling, saying I don't want you to keep petting me, because she'll let him pet her sometimes. So like she's not growling or hissing or whatever, and she's the most passive cat. Like neither one of them have ever attacked anybody. Yeah. But nobody's ever went up to her and wouldn't stop petting her for 10 minutes. So the kid doesn't get that. So anyway, long story short, we clip her nails all the time. But the way he learned finally is she started like boxing him in the face. She didn't hit him with her claws, but we were like, listen, okay, the first growl is a warning. The meow is saying you're about to get hit. The next stage is you're going to get hit in the face. And, I know a lot of parents would say that's terrible. Try to separate them before that. But it's interesting how he doesn't do it anymore.
A friend of mine, I went over and her kids love my dog, but they come at him. And my dog is small and doesn't really like young kids. And it's not that he doesn't like them. Like any kid on my street is his kid. Like that's the way he sees the kids. I walk the dog in the morning, he stops, he sniffs them all, whatever. But if they start moving around him, he freaks out because kids move too quickly for him because he can't keep track of all of them. So I'm over at my friend's place, and her daughter starts playing with the dog, and they've been trying to teach the daughter exactly like you said. And she was doing something, and they warned her, and the dog hadn't ever done that, but he like nipped at her, and he'd never done that before. So I was going to grab him like to say stop to the dog, and my friend said, nope. I said, what? And he said, I have been trying to teach my daughter for years. He just nipped. He didn't bite her. He just gave her a warning. He said, now she knows. And I was like, I really don't want my dog to bite your daughter. I was all upset, and they were like, no, thank you. I'm so happy that he did that, because now she got a little jolt and she was learning her lesson, right? He had been warning as well. Like he'd been barking and trying to pull away and stuff. So he's like, nope, thank you. Thank you for bringing. I was like, oh, this is terrible. You really don't want that to be your story with the kid and the dog. Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, they're lessons learned, right?
Exactly. They got to learn somewhere.
That's how we all learned, but that's a topic for a different day. So Lisa, this has been an absolute pleasure. One thing I wanted to ask you before we let you run, and I'll add is, when we talk about synchronicity, I think there's a cool, really ribbon or bookend today, because you're from the same place as our last guest today, Dave Carroll. And also you referenced Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay, and we're going to talk about how a synchronicity that Dave Carroll had in terms of how he connected indirectly with Wayne Dyer and how that resulted in him being signed to Hay House. So anyway, so there's going to be a cool synchronicity here. But I think it's neat that we have two people from Timmins, Ontario today.
Yes.
I don't know what the odds of that are, but two people from Timmins out of three people. So having said that, the only other thing I want to ask you is, do you have one last, as Elise calls them, mind seed or takeaway for the day? And then how would people connect with you going forward?
So I'll share the mind seed for the day. I think for me, the biggest mind seed for everyone is, you know what you need. Just take a moment and listen. I wasn't listening. Through this whole story, I wasn't listening. That's really the main point of my story, is I knew the answers. I didn't listen. So you know what you need. Just take a moment and listen. And then how to get a hold of me. You can find me. We'll put it in this way because it's easier. At my website is LMW Consultation. You can find it at LMW Coaching as well. The reason I say LMW Consultation is because that's where I am on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram.
Awesome. And is that .com?
Sorry, .ca.
Okay.
The website is all.ca because I'm Canadian.
Okay. Awesome stuff. Well, Lisa Wilson, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'll call it a to be continued, because as we mentioned, you're going to be highlighted in a lot of ways through Blue Talks in the coming months. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us today. And we will send you away by waving the flag for all the brilliant things you're doing in the world. And thanks for being such a brave face and also a reminder of what's possible given everything you've gone through. So thank you, Lisa. I salute you and adore you.
Thanks, Corey.
Awesome. I'll send you backstage, and
Okay.
and we'll chat in the near future. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on our next guest right away, because I want to maximize time and give her as much time as possible. So here she is here, Darlene Butts. And Darlene, I'm going to ask you, just before we let you take over, how do you pronounce the middle part of your name? Because I've never asked you that before.
It's Goodry, so it's French.
Okay, I was probably going to pronounce it right, but usually I would pronounce it wrong. Like usually I pronounce somebody's name wrong whenever I'm not sure which the way to pronounce it is. But I actually was going to get yours right, I think. So.
Well, I've heard every mispronunciation you can possibly do with my name, so it's all good.
I imagine, and with mine, Poirier, I've heard probably every mispronunciation, but also I've heard seen every possible misspelling of the name as well. Yeah. But I always say to people, as long as you really mean me when you're talking to me, I don't care if you call me Chris. So awesome. So right off the top, somebody said, "Hey, Darlene, Goodry Butts." So somebody wants to say hi. So Darlene, like I said, I don't want to steal any of your thunder. And what I did with Lisa is I got her to tell us a little bit about her backstory, because it became part of her sort of presentation, but introduction. So I think I'll do the same for you. But I wanted to just, first of all, thank you for coming on here today. And what I want to do is as you probably see me do with Lisa, hand the reins over to you, let you share your insight with our viewers today. And I'll watch for comments and questions, and then I'll come back on just to give you a heads up when we're winding down and ask any remaining questions that I might have, if that works okay for you, Darlene.
Perfect. Thanks, Corey. I'm so happy to be here. So
we're stoked to have you here. And I'm going to disappear backstage and let you take right over.
Okay. I'm so thrilled to be here. I know that we're supposed to be in Harvard, but if you look at the lineup of the speakers this week, it's incredible. I'm honored to be part of it. And I know that a lot of speakers are talking about their inspirational story and really trying to inspire and empower you. And I'm going to flip the script a little bit. bLU stands for Business, Life, and University. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the business side of it, because I find that when I'm online, I really like to take away a tool or strategy that I can use right away and really have that value. So that's what I'm hoping to do. I am a clarity strategist. So I am hoping that I'm not going to only flip your script, I'm going to help you create it. And I'm going to change this presentation into a little bit of a workshop. I think I'm a teacher at heart. And so there's going to be a few exercises for you to do. So if you have a notebook, grab it, or use your computer, whatever, that you can actually write down. I'm going to share with you my power introduction template. I'm also going to share with you a step-by-step marketing system that anybody can use in any business. It's super simple, but really effective. So that's, I hope, is going to be something that you're going to enjoy today. I know I'm mixing it up a little bit. I'm not sharing my inspiring story, but I am going to try to bring you as much value as I possibly can. So I started the Clarity Project about 3 years ago, and it really happened organically, naturally, which most businesses that are really great, that's the way it works. But I had an epiphany a couple of weeks ago where I realized I have actually been a communication master for my whole life. And the reason is because I'm second youngest of 7 kids. So you can imagine, I'm one of the babies. I'm also one of the smallest people in my family. And so I was constantly trying to get the attention of my parents and my siblings, constantly trying to communicate my message, that they would listen to me and respect me, because there was very little respect for mini me way back when. So for me, it's really, really important to be able to clearly articulate who you are, what you do, whom you serve, why you're doing what you're doing, and why you're different. And I've been practicing that since birth, I think. Absolutely. So I know that there are a lot of coaches, entrepreneurs, speakers, authors that are part of this group, and oftentimes struggle with being able to talk to people about what they do because of the fact that they don't want to be pushy or salesy. I deal with a lot of heart-centered businesses where they just don't want to have any negative approach to anything. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a simple way to be able to introduce yourself and to market your business, which doesn't feel pushy, doesn't feel salesy at all. It just feels really natural. And how it started was 3 years ago, I was at a conference. It was a large conference, and at the end of day one, I was walking out with a friend. We were one of the last people to leave. And up ahead of us was somebody that she knew who was with his friend. So my friend and her friend went off and talked, and I was in that awkward position. I'm sure you've all been there, whether it's an elevator or a hotel lobby or in a lineup somewhere where you're with a stranger and you don't know whether to start a conversation or not. I always start a conversation. I am not shy. I love talking to anybody, anywhere. You can ask my family because I can be very annoying. And so I just did the proverbial, who are you and what do you do? And this guy struggled. He was rambling on. He started to sweat. His face turned red. His shoulders were turned under. And after 5 minutes, I was no closer to really knowing what he did than I was when he started talking. So I kind of stopped him. And I think he was relieved at that point in time because he was rambling so badly. I said to him, can I just ask a couple questions? I'm just not really clear about what you do. So I asked him a bunch of questions. And at the end of it, I said to him, so what you're saying is you go into companies that are really lacking a cohesive team leadership, and you create these multidisciplinarian hubs, bringing people from across the company together so that it can communicate, create together, create products faster, and get to a profit margin faster for the company. Is that right? And he went, yes, that's exactly what I do. Can you say that again? And I can tell you that happens a lot with me because I'm a word geek and I love to put words in the proper way that really strike at the heart of the people that you're trying to talk to. So at the end of the conversation with my friend and her friend, we all went our separate ways, and I never thought I'd see him again. But the next day at lunch, I got a little tap on my shoulder. And he said, you changed my life. And he was a little bit emotional. I was like, what do you mean? And he said, 5 months ago, a friend of mine gave me a contact of a CEO of a company that my process could really help. And I never made the call because I didn't know what to say. How many times have you not made the call, not posted something, not written the email because you just didn't know what to say and you didn't want to look stupid? That morning when he got up, he was so clear and confident about what he did. He actually made the call and they set up a meeting for the following week. It's like he was so amazed at what the difference language made for him and his business. And I can tell you the physical transformation was as stark as the actual language that he used. Instead of being like hunched over and being nervous and rambling on, he was confident. He was like almost cocky when he walked away. And he looked so happy. And for me, that's my mission. I want to take people who have this message or mission that they want to take out into the world and help them do it just by giving them the right words to use. And that is how the Clarity Project started. And from that point on, I started helping people with their copy, with their introduction, with their books, any messaging that they had out there to make sure that it was clear and it reached their perfect audience. That's the whole point, is I want to help you stand out. And the way to stand out is to use the right messaging and the right marketing for the right people. So that brings me to your power introduction template. So if you have a notebook or you have your computer close by, I want to give you the template and then we'll discuss how you actually fill in the blanks. So I'm going to give you a sentence and I'm going to say blank. And when I say blank, just write an underline for where you can fill it in later when I give you the instructions of what to do. So is everyone ready to go? It's so much different when you're talking online versus speaking to an audience when you can see the direct reaction. So hopefully you guys are ready to go. I'm going to try to speak slowly so you have enough time to write it, but I will repeat it a couple of times. So the template is this: I help blank to go from blank to blank because blank. Now I'm going to say it again for you. I help blank go from blank to blank because blank. Everybody got it? Okay, so let me tell you now how to fill in the blanks. So when you are doing an introduction, the first thing that you want to do is you want to call out the people you are talking to. Why? Because they will start paying attention to you. I think my clients hate target audiences more than anything in the exercises that we do together. There's a lot of people there who think their product or service can help every man, woman, and child on the earth. But the fact is that there is a segment of population that your product or service can help the most. There's also a segment of the population that you like working with the most. So that is your target audience. And the reason why you do it is, I'm going to give you the example. If you're up on stage and you were in front of an audience of 1,000 people and you said, I help teachers, every teacher in that room is going to sit up and start listening to you. So you have directly engaged the people that you want to just by calling them out. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make in their messaging, is they don't talk directly with the language, in the place, in the situation, to a specific segment of the population that is their best audience. So it's I help the particular target audience that you help. For me, it's entrepreneurs, authors, and speakers. That's who I help. So the second part of the power introduction is really, what's the transformation? So the second mistake that people make in messaging is they think that the about is about them, but really what you do is about the person that you serve. So instead of going on and talking about your PhD, your awards, your experience, what people want to know first is, what's in it for me? And if you can't answer that question in your messaging, you're not going to convert potential clients to paying clients. It's as simple as that. People want to know, what's in it for me? So the from to from is your transformation. You take people from point A to point B being where they want to be, point A being where they don't want to be. So you help mothers go from yoga pants to skinny jeans. You help teenagers go from acne skin to clear skin. You help CEOs go from struggling to communicate with their team to being the top communicator and leader that they want to be. So it's really about the transformation that you provide for your clients. And that has to be really, really clear. And it's not that you sell skincare, it's what are the results? Is you take people's skin from being wrinkled to looking like they're 20. You have to say it in that form that people can really visualize what that transformation is. And it needs to be the transformation that the main core of your best clients are looking for. Because if you're like me, you probably do 1,000,001 things. And so it's like, how do you market to every market? You don't. You market in one lane and you just let spillover happen naturally. So for instance, I help mostly female entrepreneurs, but I do have male clients. And it's a spillover effect that they heard from somebody else about me, were referred, and therefore they have hired me. It's not because I've been targeting male entrepreneurs. And I help female entrepreneurs because I find that with female entrepreneurs, I have a better sense of how to communicate. So I really know who I'm targeting, even though I can help a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So target audience, your transformation. And the last part is the because part. It is your why. It is the bridge between know, like, and trust. We all know we do business with people that we know, like, and trust, unless it's low risk and low value. We want to, if we're going to invest in anything, really work with someone that we know, like, and trust. So your because is that bridge. You do it because of the passion that you have gained from whatever your experience is. So for instance, somebody might be selling skincare for people who have acne-prone skin because when they were a teenager, they didn't socialize because of their skin, and they finally found something that worked to clear their skin. And so now they want to make sure nobody else misses a moment of life because they have acne-prone skin. So when you say that, people emotionally connect with you. People understand that you're not just in it for the money, that you're in it because you have a mission or a message that you want to share with the world. You want to make the world a better place. And it's really important that you use the because that really is that last connection that people want to hear to take the next step with you. It's very simple. One sentence, fill in the blanks, and you now have yourself a power introduction. My advice to you is to fill it in and practice it. So the next time that you have to fill out your bio, you can use this as your core messaging. The next time you want to introduce yourself at a networking event, here's the sentence that you get to use. It's also going to be the foundation of all of your messaging for all of your marketing in the future. So what it does is it gives you that clarity of exactly what you do and who you're talking to, which gives you the confidence to go out there and share your message and your mission. And when you do that, that is when you build a tremendous business. So very simple premise, but by using this template, I have watched businesses and the people who own them and run them change dramatically. And I think part of it is that when you're heart-centered, like I said before, is that not wanting to be pushy or salesy and being able to say something in a manner that feels like it's serving, not selling. And when you get into that vibration, it's a game changer. So I hope that that helped. And I see that Elise is putting it down so that you have it in the comments so you can write it out yourself. But that is really probably the most important thing you can do, is to really nail that core messaging, that power introduction statement. The second half of that is, how do you use it? How do you market it? I think that for a lot of entrepreneurs, they struggle most with, should I do this? Should I do that? I think I should be a should I coach, because I answer should I a lot. Should I use Instagram? Should I write a book? Should I start a blog? Should I have an email campaign? Should I start a sales funnel? It's like shoulda, 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 shoulda. And what I want to do is give you really simple step-by-step instructions on how you can market your business, regardless of what area of business you're in, regardless of whether you're a startup or you are a seasoned business professional, that you can use to market your business. I can tell you that the first mistake that people make is the point of first contact. Now, I'm going to ask you, if you're in business, do you know what the most important point of first contact is for your business? Where do you get the most business from? So before COVID's changed things in my business, as I'm sure it has in yours. Before COVID, the number one way that I got clients was from speaking. So I'd go out, I'd get on stage, I would speak, I'd have an offer, they would accept the offer, they would move through my sales process. And the second, much less clients came this way, but my second most powerful first point of contact was referrals. And so that I know I'm not going to spend 2 hours a day on social media, because I'm not getting clients from social media. I'm not going to spend 2 hours a day on an email system, because that's not the way that I get my clients. And I've used every kind of marketing you can think of to come up with the data to know my first point of contact. So I want you to write this down. I'm going to give you a bunch of first points of contact, and I want you to write them all down in a list. And then what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what yours is. So I am separating social media platforms because the people on Twitter are different than the people on Instagram, which are different than the people on LinkedIn or Facebook. So put them all as separate things on your list: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Then you can put speaking, writing a book, email campaign, referrals, webinars. These are all different first points of contact. And what I want you to do, as soon as you've written them all down, hopefully I didn't speak too fast. As soon as you write them all down on a piece of paper, I just want you to look at them and immediately strike out anyone that you know that you've gotten very few or no clients from. So if you've never got a client from LinkedIn, strike it out. If you've never got a client through an email, strike it out. If you've never got on a stage and spoken and got a client, strike it out. And what I want you to do is figure out what are those, what is the point of contact that is most successful for you. You get to choose two. If you're new and you don't have the data to really know how each marketing silo affects your business, then my suggestion is for the next 30 days, do different things and collect the data and see what has the most impact in getting you clients. Because marketing is not about getting your name out there. Marketing is about getting clients. I don't know about you, but my business doesn't run without them. So it's, where do you find them? So once I knew that my numbers stated that I get most of my clients from speaking, and then second to that, referrals, all of my strategies for marketing, all of my time and effort is surrounding those two things. I'm not spending time on Instagram unless I'm just there to have fun. I'm not spending time building webinars because it's not something that has converted for me. So once I knew that, then I can start my step-by-step marketing system based on those 2 points of contact. So I hope you understand what that means. What is the point of contact for you? I know somebody whose point of contact is their book. They get tons and tons of potential clients through the sale of their book. So what do? They concentrate on marketing the book and bringing those people into the fold. So first step, point of contact. The second step is you need, and I know that this word has a negative connotation, but I think it has the best visualization for what I'm trying to explain, is then you need to have bait. So it's your bait to bring people into your sales process. So on social media, your bait is your content. For an email marketing campaign, your bait is your email copy. For your book, it's your book. It's whatever that bait is that you can bring people in with information, inspiration, education, fascination, whatever it takes to pull them in. So step one is to know your first point of contact that's most successful. Step two is to create the bait for that. So when I'm speaking, I give, as you can see, I give value, that the same value that I give to paying clients. I don't hold anything back. I share whatever I can. And what that does is it allows people to see that I know what I'm talking about and that I can help them. That is my bait, so to speak. So after you determine what that bait's going to look like, what does it, and you again, know your numbers, try different things. I've done probably live on stage 50 different talks, and I'm constantly tweaking based on what the reaction is of the audience and what the reaction is afterwards for clients. So it's constantly tweaking to really be able to understand what works in the bait category. Once you do that, then you have to set up the credibility factor. So if you're looking at on any sort of social media platform, that's your profile. Make sure your profile states who you are and why you're so great. If it's a webinar, then normally it's whoever introduces you or your bio beforehand. For your book, it's whether it's best-selling, that sort of thing. It's like, what credibility can you bring to the stage? Because after people get interested, they want to know, can you really help them? So bring on your credibility. And then the next thing that you need to do is you need to have a call to action. So I'm going to use social media again because it's probably the easiest for most people to visualize. So you've decided that you get the majority of your clients from Instagram. So now you're upping the amount of time you spend on looking at the content, creating the content, getting the feedback of what content works, and so that you're really humming along in providing the content that gets people to look at your profile. So your profile states all of the things that you're going to do for these people. What do you really do? What are you recognized at? What are you an expert at? So people say, wow, this person, they're very credible. I want to learn more about them. So on Instagram, the call to action is your link. The link could be directly to your website if you want. I like it to be more specific. And so for me, I use Linktree. If you've never used Linktree before, you can either pop on my Instagram, which is at Darlene G Butts, or you can just look up Linktree. And you will see that what it does is when someone clicks on the link in your bio and Instagram, that you actually have 3 or 4 choices where you can send them. The first choice on my Linktree is a discovery call, because I have found through trial and error that when people talk to me one-on-one, it is the best way to move them forward in the sales process. So here we are where we're looking at, they've gone through Instagram, they looked at your content, looked at your profile, clicked on your link, and now I got them right to my calendar to book the call. The first half of your marketing system is done, but they're not a client yet. So now what do? What you need to do is you need to have a strategy for the call, the same way that you had the strategy for your Instagram account. So I had a client about 2 months ago. She approached me because her call to action was a discovery call, and she was getting about 1 client for every 25 calls she did. That is not good odds. It's not efficient marketing, and it's not fun. So I said to her, okay, explain to me what you do on the call. So she said, well, I take them through the process. I share with them all of the things, whatever tidbits I can give them that's going to help their business. And then I say to them, so if you want to learn more, if you want to work with me, then just let me know in the future. And I was like, wait a second. People are busy. The moment that call is ended, they have messages, they have notifications, they have possibly kids wanting them, spouses wanting them, they have their own clients wanting them. Within 15 minutes of done that call, they've forgotten about you. What you need to do is you need to give them a call to action that they're actually going to execute right then and there. So when I do my call, what I say at the end of the call is that I help people either one-on-one or through my group mastermind program really be able to up-level their messaging and their marketing so they can grow their business. Do you prefer working one-on-one or do you prefer working in a group? And then we start the conversation about how I can help them in either one of those ways. I said, try it and see how that helps. So she started doing her calls again, and she's now at the point where she converts 7 people for every 10 phone calls. That's huge. And the only difference in that call was a call to action. And it's, where do you take the client the next logical step? So for instance, my discovery call, it's very seldom that I will pitch somebody, my private $10,000 package. That's a big step to go from just meeting you and then saying, not only do you want to marry the person, but you want to marry them for 25 years. That is a lot. And so what I try to do is say, okay, what's the next logical step for you? What do you need right now? What is your price point? How can we help you get to that next level? And that's what happens, is then they make the decision right then and there. Every once in a while, I have a person say, well, I really want to think about it. I say, fine. And I know that they're not coming back. And it's okay. Very few people convert 100% of potential clients to paying clients. It just is what it is. But I convert a lot because I ask them, how can I help you now? What's the next step that we can take together to help your business? Once you do that, they are now a paying client. So I don't care what business you are in. You can use this step-by-step process. The first step is first point of contact. Know which ones work for you. Second step is bait. Third step is credibility. Fourth step is call to action to take it from an online or non-personal place to a one-on-one in some shape or form. And then you go through value, and then you do the call to action. And I know that there's people sitting here going, what? That's how you market a business? I thought you had to have a sales funnel. I thought you had to have this. I thought you had to. You don't. If you just follow these steps over and over and over again, your business will grow with paying clients. Why? It really comes down to the fact that you asked. You asked them to be your client. And I really learned this the hard way. And I'm going to share this with you because no matter how much of an expert you are, you've made mistakes, past, present, and I know that I will in the future. And what happened is that I didn't ask for the business. And I'd find people and I'd, talk to them months later and say, oh yeah, that was so great, the call, it really thinking. And then a week later, somebody reached out to me and I went, yeah, that's what I need. So thank you for that. I'm like, that person should be thanking me because I really marketed it for them. I set them up and then I passed the ball. Instead of grabbing the ball I passed it. And that's a mistake that people make because they don't want to feel pushy. They don't want to feel salesy. But I always come from a point of service, never from a point of sales. I always come to that point where, how can I serve you? And someone always has the answer. So I hope that these two tools, your power introduction and these step-by-step marketing program that I put all of my clients through in these simple, easy to do steps, I hope that helps you build your business so that your mission and your message can be heard around the world because you now stand out from the crowd. You're on mute, Corey, but I saw the wow.
Yeah, so I said, wow. Amazing stuff, Darlene, to the point where I saw someone commented, Elise was doing a great job of summarizing as you were going, but I saw that Rebecca Luna said, how can I get a replay of Darlene's talk? This is wonderful info. And I can answer that in the sense that for the next little while, Rebecca, the replay will be up on this Facebook page. And depending on where else, I think you're watching it on YouTube, though, because I can see the YouTube logo. Rebecca, I know you're connected with me, so I'll tag you in the Facebook version because it'll stay up there as a replay. It will stay up on YouTube as a replay, but I think it's a little harder to track it down that way. And I did see, Darlene, I saw a question for sure. I'm just going to go back up because I want to make sure I'm not missing something. And so what are the results? I think Elise is just repeating what you said, which is what are the results your clients are looking for. But somebody said, I help leaders go from doing to leading because a great leader can take their teams to amazing heights and reach goals they never expected to. So I think they were basically summarizing and sharing what their take on it. But here's another one. Great question. What is the point of contact? What is the point of contact that is most successful? Problem is that meeting people in person is my most successful contact point, laughing out loud. So I guess they're saying the challenge they have right now is they're successful. The way they're most successful is when they meet people in person, and right now they can't.
And I completely relate to that because I built my business by speaking. And it's very different speaking online than it is in person and being able to talk to people afterwards and bring them over to your table and talk about the offer that you have. So it is very different. And what I did was I just adjusted. One, started speaking online. And two, what I did was I started doing more marketing in other ways so that I could bring them into wherever I was speaking online. So everyone's had to make adjustments for COVID. I completely understand that. I say just keep putting yourself out there. And if people are attracted to you in person, do Facebook Lives because it means that you have a personality that's very attractive. Start testing whether that is a good point of first contact for you by doing Facebook Lives and giving value, giving the value that you would in person when you're talking to somebody.
Well, I love that, Darlene, and I agree with you that I feel like somebody who is good at in-person meetings is probably very charismatic. Whether they like that word or not, they might not look at themselves as charismatic, but if you're good in person, you probably are. And I feel like charisma is a really powerful thing socially, on social media and virtually and on Zoom. I think that comes through.
I agree. And so just be confident in that. I know it's harder because you're not getting the immediate feedback from the audience, the energy, the smiles, or them on their phone, whatever it is that the feedback is that's telling you you're doing the right thing or wrong thing. But I think with Facebook Lives, if you get really comfortable with it, it's another way to reach with that persona that you have that people are attracted to. Don't be scared of sharing yourself.
Absolutely. And something you said that I wanted to mention, I think it's so important and I think it's overlooked. It's what I try to do as well, which is that to give so much that people are like, if they gave me that much for free, how much more could they have? Like, if that's the free stuff. And so what it makes me think of is Brendan Burchard. So whether a person likes Brendan or not, I'm sure like all influencers, he has his detractors. But one thing I don't think anybody can say about Brendan, if you truly follow him, you can't say that he's selfish. I mean, this guy will do an hour-long YouTube video teaching me his whole system. And truthfully, I know people that have never bought from him and used the system they learned from him on YouTube for free and built a business. And like Jeff Walker with his product launch formula, same thing. He teaches the whole thing.
I totally agree with that. I met Brendan Burchard in 2009 before he was famous. He was just starting to build his business. I actually met him at a conference in New York. There was a lot of really famous people there, including Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for the Soul. And he's the only one I remember because he was just amazing. He was a fill-in speaker, but was amazing. And I started following him. And I think that there's a lot of people say to me, well, why would I give away everything for free? And my answer to that is there are DIYers out there that will use a book or use your webinar or whatever to be able to build their business. They're not your audience. There's a lot of people who are going to listen to you and go, that's overwhelming. I need help. She's the person to help me. And you're right. Brendan Burchard is the best example of that. Is he gave away all of his information for free to build a $100 million business.
100%. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think, like I say, he gives so much that there's a point where people say, well, like I say, if that's the free stuff, then I need to follow this guy. And I think I do believe, just like, again, I mentioned Jeff Walker, just like Jeff Walker says, there is that whole thing about when you give away that much, there's a reciprocating thing. People want to give back. They want to say, how can I support him if he gave me that much for free? And so maybe that becomes a stepping point where maybe financially they can't afford to go all in with Brendan yet, but they say, okay, I'm going to go and dip my toes with this $99 membership site. And then after a while, next thing you know, they're going to his live event for say $300 or $500. And that's sort of what happened with me with Brendan is that I didn't know him. And so people introduced me and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to invest a little bit. And, since that time, I've been to his live event twice. I've invested in his influencer program. I pretty much invested in, I think, everything he's had to offer except for his $25,000 coaching program. It's the only one I haven't invested in yet. And it's not because I didn't believe in it or don't believe the value or didn't have the finances to invest in it at the time. It's just that I was juggling so much other stuff and I was already involved in too many other things. And I knew I'm one of those people that I can jump around too easily. So I felt that it wouldn't be a good move because I would be pulled in a different direction. But my point is, I actually see the value to invest that much in him. And it all started from a guy that did what you're talking about, which is to give it all away, to don't hold back. And as you said, don't go, okay, well, this person's on my virtual event, so I'm just going to tease them about what they could have, but not really give them anything.
And when you're on the receiving end of that, where you're just teasing them, how do you feel? You feel like you've been ripped off. So do you really want your audience to feel like they're ripped off? Not
yeah.
me.
Well, and that's a great point, like webinars. How many people have gone on a webinar for an hour about how to do this? And it's the biggest thing in the world they wanted to do. And they get on the webinar and they're on for an hour and the person keeps basically tiptoeing around actually giving you any real content. And they keep saying, well, if you join our program, you'll learn this. If you join this, you'll learn this. And it's like, if you do this, you'll get this stuff, but only if you do that. But on this call that we told you to give up an hour of your time for, we're really not going to teach you anything. We're just going to tell you about the 10 other people that have already done it.
Exactly.
And you feel ripped off both of your time and even just the value of what you expected to get. And I think you walk away disappointed and going, I'll never go to that person's webinar again. So anyway, to your point, I just want to validate what you're saying, Darlene. I think more people need to see the value and power of giving away enough great value and content that the person says, I want to give back to that person. I want to support them. Maybe they can't even afford your product, but they can refer you to somebody else who can.
Well, yeah. And the other thing too is when you come from a point of it's your mission, and this is my mission. I'm a word geek. I get really excited about just finding that one word that really encapsulates everything that somebody's trying to do. Like that is my passion. So the other thing too is that not everyone can afford me. So that doesn't mean that I don't want everyone to have the ability that I can give them to promote their own business. And it is like I got free stuff from Brendan when I couldn't afford to go to anything more than just his free stuff. It's payback. Now I'm giving it to people who can't afford it. And when you come from that spirit of service, it's amazing how fast your business will grow. And you think it's counterintuitive, but it's really not, because when you come from a place of service, people respect you and they want to be around you.
Absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you that, you just summed up something really important. As we start to wind down, I'll say that with bLU Talks, part of that was, for me, what triggered bLU Talks was I wanted people to be able to get access to this stuff. And for my own programs, it's not affordable for everybody. So it's not affordable for everybody to pay thousands to go through a speaking program. But this allows me to give access to some great minds and knowledge without people having to dump thousands of dollars to learn that. But I'm also, just as a side note, I'm getting ready to launch a member site that nobody really knows about yet on the back end. And the reason I decided to do that, the biggest reason was and it looks like $44 a month, but for $44 a month, all those people for years kept saying, next year, Corey, I hope I can join your program. Now they're going to have a second option, like you mentioned, where we're going to have a category dedicated to speaking. So you'll still be able to learn the speaking business, maybe not in the same structure as my program, but now you'll have access to that, even if you're only at that $44 a month level, and then you build up from there. Maybe I help you land that speaking engagement that pays $5,000. You go, okay, now I can buy a speaking program. So, I mean, I love what you're saying there, is that you're allowing those people, whether it's free Brendan stuff you share with them, or whether it's something that you're doing that they can get access to now so that later they can afford the next level.
Exactly. And again, it sounds really counterintuitive, but it's super important.
I agree so much. So here's the last thing, Darlene, is a two-part thing. How can we learn more about you? How can we connect with you further? But then also, you mentioned forums and that. Do you have links to those, or are there any links that you can share in the comment section for people that want to follow up further to what you were sharing?
Sure. So first of all, if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on social media at Darlene G. Butts is pretty much me across the board. I also, on my website, darlenebutts.com, you can go. And I think that for a lot of people who may have just written out the template and is struggling on how to fill the blanks, is you may want to just hop on my website and book yourself a clarity call, and we'll go through it. It's free because I just enjoy it. And that's my gateway, is to really have a conversation with you about how I can help your business. So if you go on to darlenebutts.com, you can see the link to schedule your own call with me one-on-one, and let me help you, because that's the thing I enjoy the most.
Love it. So, Darlene, this has been an absolute pleasure. I knew it would be. I'm seeing some great comments in here saying, you speak my language, coming from a place of service all the time. Thanks for that info about lives. Thank you both. Great conversation. So, Darlene, I think that's reflective of how much value people took from this insight. So thank you so much. I applaud you. As you know, I adore you. And as you know, there's lots more coming in the bLU Talks ecosystem. So we're going to see lots more of Darlene in the near future as well. And note that Darlene's going to be joining us at Harvard in the spring as well. So awesome stuff. And it's funny because you mentioned the Harvard event, and a lot of people here that maybe weren't attending the Harvard event, or they're watching for the first time, wouldn't know that we're bringing the event to Harvard. And we've already went to Harvard once with bLU Talks. We're going back. Of course, COVID decided that it was going to be spring versus fall. So it is pushed till April. We're also going to Columbia University in April, separate thing altogether. And we are, which is really mind-blowing, running our live event in Alberta next month. That part still shocks me that we're able to do it. But and the irony of it is I can't get into the event. So I won't be going, but I have my organizer who's based in Alberta. She's going to be running it for me. And actually, Elise, my co-host here, got to meet Tiffany at the San Diego event. And so we're going to be running that in October in Alberta. I won't be there, but we have 12 speakers lined up and the organizers. So I'm just excited that we can actually still do a live event in 2020.
That is exciting. And I have to say, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful to Roz, if you're listening, for introducing us. It's been a pleasure working with you and doing this. And I love this online format. I've been trying to listen to everybody who's speaking and been inspired and empowered and happy to be part of the group.
Awesome. Well, the feeling's mutual, Darlene. And the last comment said, awesome. I'll get to meet you in person sometime, Darlene. So hopefully whatever that is, it'll happen. Feel free to watch the comments because there is some comments and I might have missed one or two. Thank you so much. Again, I salute you. We'll call it a to be continued. And if people are following the Blue Talks community, they'll see you here in the very near future again.
Perfect.
So thanks, Darlene. Awesome.
Enjoy the rest of your presentations.
Oh, thank you. Hey, yes, everybody, enjoy the rest. So I'm going to bring our next guest on right away, maximize time. This guest, I've been excited, waiting for this all day as well. Excited to interview him again. It's been a while since I had the opportunity to interview him. I love that he wanted to do the interview because we had two people present today. So I like to have some balance between the two. So Mr. Dave Carroll, I'm going to jump right into things if that's okay with you. Rather than do the big reveal and do the intro, I figured I want to maximize our time with you. So first of all, let me just share how I know Dave, and then we'll dive into who Dave Carroll is on a bigger scale. But I get to meet Dave Carroll. Actually, I think it was before his United Breaks Guitar video, but obviously the United Breaks Guitar. Actually, I know where it was now. I think the first time we met in person was we both spoke at the Emerge conference in Halifax, Nova Scotia, I believe. Okay. If not, I know I interviewed him at the Halifax conference. So I got to meet Dave, I guess when United Breaks Guitars was sort of just breaking. And I want to talk a little bit about that today for those that may be going, what's United Breaks Guitars? Or the others going, I love that video and I want to know how that all gets started. But I got to meet Dave probably even a little bit before the Emerge conference, at least. I think we chatted before that. Then I got to meet him at the Emerge conference and interview him there. I've interviewed him a couple times since. I think we shared the bill maybe 3 or 4 times or 2 or 3 times speaking. Dave has this amazing story that I love that, and I think I've said this to you, Dave, but to me it is the true Dave versus Goliath story. Yeah. Because, it's perfect that your name is Dave. So, Dave, for those of you who don't know, had an experience, and I don't want to steal a lot of his thunder, I'll just say had an experience where United Airlines didn't treat his guitar as nicely as they should. I have a Taylor guitar myself now, so I feel his pain. I didn't have one back then. But they didn't treat his Taylor guitar as nice as they should. I think it was just a newer Taylor guitar, not a low-cost guitar. And he went to try to resolve it, and they weren't so keen to resolve it. So Dave was patient, I think more patient than most people would be, waited, I think it was close to a year or something like that, and then ultimately wrote a song called United Breaks Guitars about United Airlines breaking his guitar. The video went viral. I think we can definitely call it a viral video. And the rest, as they say, is history. But we're going to talk about and unpack that history. So Dave Carroll, first of all, welcome. And I know we're going to unpack a lot of that stuff. So Dave, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Corey. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And somebody said here, Dave, great to see you. I learned about United Breaks Guitars at a concert in Timmins. Just had to buy the book. And our first guest on today is actually from Timmins. And so I said, what are the odds of 2 people in connection to Timmins, Ontario being on?
We're everywhere.
Thing today.
Yeah, we're everywhere. Timmins people spread out.
100%. So Dave, I talked about United Breaks Guitars. Let's start there, because anytime I talk to somebody and your story comes up, the question always becomes, well, I want to have a viral video. How did this video go viral? And I know you and I chatted, and I have a good memory for interviews. So I remember when we chatted at Emerge, I asked you about this, and you shared this great story about how the X and Y axis, and where like Apple is at the Y, everybody else is at the X's, and how important that is to be doing something nobody else did. So you did United Breaks Guitars before anybody was doing that, and you made the comment to me that you don't know if it would go viral today because everything's changed so much. Right. So are there some elements, if we want to have something go viral or catch fire, that you see that work and still work now? Or is it something where you just have to get in early before everybody else?
Well, to that point about the graph, I still think that's valid. If everybody is clustered over and they're fighting over the crumbs over here, and you go try something new in another area, there's a reason people cluster in groups. It's because it's easier. It's lower hanging fruit. So you're taking risks, and you're more prone to have failures when you're by yourself trying something new. But if it does hit, you benefit a lot, and then the group will end up going there, and then you have to find somewhere else. So right now, content is still king. Content will always be king, I think, on social media and anywhere else. If you create good content, and in my case, my goal was to make something that looked good, sounded good, and made people want to tell their friends about it. And that was my social media recipe, if you will. And it still works to this day. I think if you make engaging content, people will come to it. So being creative is still the most important thing. But you have to, I think, if you really want to stand out, you have to do something that makes you stand out. And that means probably trying something new.
Well, to that point, we talked about this at the time, I remember as well. What you were doing then wasn't being done on YouTube then. Like, it wasn't like people weren't making a customer service music video that looked high quality, and at the same time, which a lot of people didn't know at the time, cost $150 to make. You know, all those elements most people weren't doing videos at that level at that time.
Right. And so the video was quality in the sense that Steve Richard is a director of photography, and Lara Cassidy is a real director, and that sort of thing. So those inputs were good, but we didn't have much of a budget, so everything was low budget in other ways. But you're right. You have to bring the right people together and just go for it.
100%. And so if somebody wants to, and it doesn't mean viral video really either. They just want to maybe get something that's sticky rather than, because we now with Twitter and stuff like that, I mean, that wasn't even really as big a thing then, but now Twitter, I mean, like, you can put something up there and it's gone 8 seconds later. The only way it sticks is if it's either the one tweet that goes viral that day or you're a celebrity. But otherwise, it seems like your posts just go and disappear. And so YouTube, I mean, I don't even know the numbers, but what are the numbers of YouTube videos that are on YouTube now versus even then? So to your point, you have to make something that's sticky, but also has those elements. I think you told me at the time too, it was universal in the way we could all relate to having a poor customer service experience and wishing we could speak up to the man or the woman or the system. And right. You did that. And then, like you said, a high quality thing, putting a lot of quality into that. Also the comedy. I mean, there was such a comedic element. So it feels like some of those elements still all work. It's just that you probably can't go into it saying, I'm going to do that one time, and like Dave, I'm going to have 15 million video views on that one video alone. Yeah,
and you know what? It doesn't even really matter if you you don't have to go for 20 million views every time. Sometimes if the right 200 views is the thing that will drive your career forward. Do it more in micro bursts. I got lucky and I had something that had millions and millions of views, but I also cast a very wide net with really no direction of what I wanted to achieve. It was just, I wanted to share the story in a creative way that made me laugh and bring our friends together and see what happens. But now people are much more surgical in the way that they're trying to reach certain people. And there's data analytics and there's all sorts of tools to help you get more specific. So I think the way you approach your content creation now and what you hope to achieve is different, definitely when I first did this a little over 10 years ago.
Well, and I want to move away from the video in a second because I know you share this story a lot, like the United Brace guitar story a lot. But I'd love to ask you, I know you told me at one point what your mother decided was when Dave made it and what your father decided when Dave made it. But what is your, so far, from the whole United experience, anything related to that, is there a moment that stands out to you as that moment where you just kind of went, wow, this is amazing, whether it was just because it was a dream of something or like, and you probably know where I'm going at when I say your mother and father was CNN and Reader's Digest. Yeah. But was there a moment for you? And I should add too, I love the part, because I probably won't mention this later, about how your mother said, you know, soon you'll be a successful musician. At the time when she was packing, like how many CDs was it in her room for you or something like that?
Yeah. So my mom has been doing our mail order forever, and that was kind of a defining moment. When I went over to her house and I said, how are the CD sales? And because she just lived up the street from me, and I walked in and I said, where are you? And she says, I'm downstairs, but look in the living room. So I looked in the living room and there was yellow manila envelopes, piled 10 high, the whole length of the sofa. And I said, this is incredible. And she said, it's our third sofa full today. So I said, get in the car. We're going to Leon's. I'm buying you a sectional.
That's the reward.
Yeah.
And so, and I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going by memory in this, but was it your mother or father that was like, when they saw you in the little Reader's Digest blurb, and said, "My son has made it." Was that your father?
Yeah, it was my dad. So the contrast was I got, after months, about 6 months in, I got asked to go on The View with Whoopi Goldberg and the ladies. And so, of course, I was going to say yes to that, but I had to call my mother even before I said yes, I would do it. And I called her on the phone, and she dropped an F-bomb on the phone, is the short story version of that, because for her, that was her favorite show. And that was the ultimate. And for my dad, he didn't really care. When it was on CNN, he didn't care about that. But finally, when I just mentioned that I'd done an interview with the Reader's Digest, he was like, "Holy gee, son, this is huge." Right? So, to answer your question, like, the thing for me, there really isn't one thing that says I finally made it. But I have many experiences where I've enjoyed watching other people's reactions, where they think I finally made it because it has happened, and it's pretty cool. I'm very lucky that I've had a close family and a small group of supporters, I guess, that I've had close, that have enjoyed the story with me, and it's been nice to be doing something that they're proud of for me. It's this sort of self-fulfilling circle. It always comes back full circle.
Well, and I want to move to the flipping of your script from a musician to a speaker, and that's where I'd like to go in a second. But the other thing too is, for the people that don't know your story and because if they haven't seen you speak live, they might know the United Breaks Guitar story. They might know what this, when I say United Breaks Guitars, they might know what it is. But if they haven't heard you live, they probably don't know maybe some of the nuances, like how crazy it got when the video went viral. But correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was a point where you had all your family members in the house, and even one of your kids was really young and was grabbing the phone and answering the phones or something.
Yeah, well, it was almost like on the third day, when it was just all coming down at the same time. There were people calling for interviews. People were calling my brother was calling to say, media is calling me at the fire station, trying to get 10 minutes and asking me if I could get 10 minutes with you for them, type of thing. There were satellite trucks outside my house. But it really became clear how big it was when I was doing an interview, and I looked across. My wife, Jill, was answering a call for the phone and doing something on email and breastfeeding our son at the same time. We were overwhelmed early on.
That's awesome. That's amazing. It's such a cool story, because I don't think there's many people that can say that, that other than if there was like a national story they're involved in, but from a YouTube video, who would have thought?
What I think really stands out for me now, seeing how social media has evolved, and sort of the dark underbelly, is that I know that you can buy 10,000 YouTube hits for about $25 now, and I've seen that happen. We did that at a conference where the person who hired me, I wrote a song, we did it in the event, and the next morning he showed like 40,000 hits or whatever it was that he just bought, and he had declared it to the audience. He said, and that was his point, that the count doesn't matter as much anymore because you can buy a lot of hits. But United Breaks Guitars was the true deal in terms of just a viral video. I made this thing, no plan, no social media strategy. I just posted it. I just sent it to my friends, said, watch this video and share it if you like. And I never asked them again. So there was no constant marketing plan. It was just truly organic, and it just took off. It was the blueprint of what it was always meant to be. If you could use social media, if you told two friends, would they tell two friends, and so on and so on.
Well, it's amazing. And I realized when you said that, the last time I looked at the numbers, I think it was about 16 or 17 million. And when you said 20, I'm looking right now, and it's even bumped since then. Like, the last time I looked was after the story, it was like 5 years old or 4 years old. And I think it was at 15 or 16. So it's even still built millions since then. And then I noticed the 2 is now at 2.3 million, which I think was at 1. So the videos kept going as well. Yeah.
So all of it, there's 3 videos there, and the workhorse has been the first one, of course, but that told, and all the other videos I've done since, I think it's coming close to 30 million views, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I just put, I thought it might be the easiest way to do it, but I just put a comment in here in the comment section that is like the search, so they can see the top 3 of them if they click on the link. If it doesn't work, let me know in the comments, anybody that sees this and it doesn't work, and then I'll put the individual one. But I didn't want to put it on now because, of course, it would start playing. I have to play it to grab the link, so I don't want to start playing it. But I'll put it in later if I notice that link doesn't work, so people can get a feel for this. So, Dave, let's move away from that a little bit in terms of the story of what happened. And go to the next part, which is how that transformed into your speaking career. Because I want to go in the direction of the book and how that came about and the synchronicity involved in that.
Yep.
But before we get there, for those that may not realize that you were a musician for a lot of years, and then you made a pretty slick and seamless transition into becoming a speaker/musician.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did that start, and what did that look like on the speaking side? I mean, you got to speak, I think, like, have you got to speak in Budokan, or like some amazing places?
Yeah, 34 countries and counting. So it's been pretty amazing.
Crazy. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that sort of switch, what that was like going from a musician to a speaker?
Yeah. So again, the thing to note when I look back on it is that it all happened at the same time. So the video went viral, and then opportunities came all at the same time. And you said yes to everything at the same time, not knowing how to do anything. So pretty early on, within a month at least, somebody called on the phone and just got me as I was walking by the phone. And they said, hi, Dave, we're with a company called Right Now Technologies, and we're putting on our biggest event of the year. 700 of the biggest brands in the world are going to be in Colorado Springs, and we want you to be our opening keynote speaker. You don't have to talk for long, just 40 minutes, and you don't even need your guitar, that said. And that mortified me because I'd never done any speaking in my life, even on stage. My brother Don did most of the talking, and if I did talk and I ran out of things to say after 3 minutes, I would just play a song. So I had that. So now they said, did you want to speak for 40 minutes? But I was jumping through every door that opened at the time, so I said, sure. And we agreed on a price that seemed outrageous for a Canadian singer-songwriter, indie guy. And I was happy with everything. And then they said, great, the event's next week. And can we get your PowerPoint slides right away? And I said, sure, I'd like to customize that for you, though, if you don't mind. And got off the phone, and I called my father-in-law, Brent, and I said, hey, Brent, what's a PowerPoint presentation? Because musicians never use them. I'd heard of PowerPoint and didn't know what it was. And so I ended up going to do my presentation in Colorado Springs the next week from Regina, because I had to go do some music shows out in Saskatchewan. And it was like 9 o'clock at night in the empty room before the next morning's keynote. I was the opening keynote, and in walks my father-in-law, Brent. And he's got the USB of the slideshow that he built for me. I gave him the content, but he built the slides. And I handed it to the guy who hired me, and he puts it in the machine, and he just asked me to run my slides to make sure they're working. But I was transfixed on them because I'd never seen them before. And I showed my cards that this guy realized that I had never spoken before. And it was really uncomfortable. And I had to go on the next morning and take a shot at my first ever presentation to 700 big brands. And it ended up going really well. I had some cheat sheet cards. So I really was starting fresh, but I didn't look at them too many times, and apparently it went very well. So, but I found right away that the experience as a speaker is very much like a performer. And musicians, if you're doing it right on your best shows, you're probably taking the audience on a bit of a curve with fast songs, slow songs, maybe a humorous one, maybe one that grabs you by the heart. And so that's the way I structured my talk in terms of stories, to try and take people on an emotional journey and hit them with a few insights. And it seemed like if I could break that down into 5-minute segments of maybe 8, that could get me through 40 minutes. And that's how I've approached speaking ever since.
So I love that you shared that, Dave, because one of the things when I'm helping people on the speaking side of things is I tell them that I think a good speech is either like a 3-act play or a concert set list. So when you said it, because when I use the example, I'll say, like, you notice the Rolling Stones, if they're going to show their hand and say, here's the new song, they're going to put 2 big songs around it because they don't want you going to get fries and not coming back for a half hour.
Right.
So it's all intentional. And to your point, I mean, why is satisfaction always in the encore? I mean, this isn't coincidence. It's worked for years. And I agree with you that the same emotions work within a talk. And yeah, I mean, it's easier probably for musicians to do that because you're used to doing that with your set list. But it's the same thing with the set list. I didn't play to the same scale you did, but I mean, I toured multiple summers, and with my own set list, I would know where to put stuff. And I would say, okay, this song has to be here because it's a really popular song when I play it live. Now, this song here, I love it, but not as many people like it. So it needs to go right here. And then I'm going to play a cover song that people know. And that way, in my case, they're not going to go for fries probably. They're sitting in a smaller venue. So then I need to be able to keep them with me and not lose them to start talking. So it's all intentional. I don't just kind of go, here's 20 songs and I'm just going to put them all there and see where, and put them in a pile and draw the names out. So I like what you just said there, Dave, because I think that's a really big no for anybody who wants to get into speaking. If you can structure it like a musician structures a set list, you're going to go way further than people that just kind of randomly put it all there.
Yeah, and when we were doing shows early on, when I was writing original material, but I didn't have very many that would be appropriate, especially in bars, I would put them in between two really good covers so that you got the people's emotional level up, and then you hit them with your own song, knowing they're going to come down a little bit. They might even feel like you've betrayed them by taking their good feelings, and then you hit them with another one, they forget it, and maybe it gets familiar the next time you do it. And so you got to sneak in your best bits with the surefire stuff.
Yeah, and then to that point, and then eventually your own stuff becomes the hit as well, or becomes what they're used to, and they keep coming back. So then they go, I know that song. Where's that song from? Is that on the radio? And it's your song. There's a point where I think they get warmed up to it. It's just like the other thing I gave the example too is comics, stand-up comics. We'd always, if we were bringing new material to the stage, we'd go with the second strongest joke first and finish with the strongest. And that was usually stuff that you knew worked already, because the second strongest pulls them in.
Right.
But you want them to leave on the highest notes, so you leave the strongest for last. And then you could do a lot of new stuff in between. And really good comics will just start putting new stuff in between the stuff that works. And they bring you on that journey. And if the new joke doesn't work, then they bring you right back in with another one. But if they have 10 minutes of material and it's all brand new and not tried, and it all bombs, they look at you as the comic that was horrible that night.
Right. And so to play devil's advocate, though, I remember hearing about George Carlin, who apparently every year would say, okay, let's pretend like I've never done a joke in my life. And he started fresh every year, which is really ballsy, right? To jump in. And, but that really probably scared him too, scared him into really thinking about his material, because he was going to do what you just said is really scary if it bombs, right? So you got to be courageous to do that sort of thing. But most people, including me, my presentations have morphed over time. So now they're different than the beginning, but there was always something left behind that I would keep as my safety spot, right? To keep going.
Well, and I'm gonna segue now to the last part I want to talk about, which is the synchronicities that have happened for you. But you just made me think as well of Seinfeld. If people haven't seen this, I highly recommend it. It's a documentary called Comedian. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
yeah.
Okay, so what Seinfeld did is exactly what you said Carlin used to do. I think he only did it the once. I don't know if he did it like Carlin on a regular basis, but Seinfeld put out a concert DVD called "I'm Telling You for the Last Time," and the idea was, I've been doing this material for 20 years. It's gone. And they even had, if you saw that one as well, what I loved at the beginning is they had a bunch of famous comics, and like he's throwing all the material into like, I think it was like a tombstone or something. And somebody's like grabbing a piece saying, I'm just going to put this in my pocket. And you know that bit, now can I take that now that you're burying it? And so it was like the idea he was actually burying all his material and starting from scratch. And Comedian is you watching him. I mean, they did it like in 90 minutes. It was over a year, I think it took place. But you're watching him and a brand new comedian, Orny Adams, I think his name was. But you're watching the two of them, and you're watching Orny try to make it big with material he's been using for a while. But you're watching Seinfeld go to a club in New York with absolutely no material, and he's written 5 minutes, and he jumps on stage. And if you remember it goes bad at first. Like one lady said, "Is this your first gig?"
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
And another person said, "Go back to your day job, Seinfeld." You know, and it was like bad. And he was like sweating and wiping his brow away because he did what we just said. He went with no material. And what was really cool is you got to see at the end of a year, he had 45 minutes that worked solid.
Yep.
But it's bold. Like you said, that's not for everybody. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, it's good to have a few gems tucked in your pocket that you can go to and just calms you down. Yeah.
100%. So, Dave, the last direction I want to go was about the synchronicity. I think a lot of people here will really like this because bLU stands for Business Life Universe. And so the universe is the side of the new age, spirituality, synchronicities, holistic health. And so for those people, today we've been a little more business focused, whereas usually we're a little bit more on that side. So I think it's cool to go in this direction because we haven't had a lot of it today. But the neat thing to me, so you shared the story with me. I knew parts of it before, but I heard a little bit more about it the last time we talked. But you shared the story with me about your connection to Wayne Dyer, and even Eckhart Tolle, in fact, as well, about writing a song and about music. And this was before United Breaks Guitars, I think, when this story started. But can you tell us a little bit about the song that you wrote and the life it took? And you know where I'm going with the story. So synchronicity that connected you to Wayne Dyer in a way?
Sure. So Before United Breaks Guitars, Don and I had played for 20 years, and then I ended up doing a solo CD, and on that CD was a song called Now, and the song Now was inspired by Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. And the reason I read that book of his was because I read Wayne Dyer's book, The Power of Intention. And I really liked that, so I found this other one by Tolle. And so I wrote the song, and I was really happy with it. And so I sent it to Wayne Dyer there was an address in Florida, one of his books. And so I sent it to him, just said, thanks for the inspiration. You're partially responsible for this song. And I didn't hear back from him. And I found out later that apparently he didn't reach out to fan mail very much, if at all. And so I didn't hear back from him. But I also sent it to Eckhart Tolle and said, this song is based on your 2 books. And I sent it to Constance Kello, his publisher at Namaste Publishing. And I was in Timmins, Ontario, about to do a CD release for that CD. And I had this message on my phone from Constance Kello, and she's really energetic. She's like, Dave Carroll, it's Constance Kello. I publish Eckhart Tolle. He sold 15 million books of his 2 books right now. And your song Now is the audio portal into stillness. It sums up everything he's written in his 2 books. He's doing a 10-week series with Oprah right now. He's on week number 7. I'm going to Chicago, and I'm going to give Oprah Winfrey your song, and I think she's going to share it with the world. And I lost my mind, right? Because that was right when if Oprah said your name or said your book, it was huge. So I thought this is the game changer, the one I've been waiting for my whole life. And it turned out that didn't really materialize. That if she did go to Chicago, she didn't give it to Oprah, or it never got back to me. But I carried on, and I did United Breaks Guitars, and it went crazy. But I was still a fan of Wayne Dyer's. I read a lot of his books, and I was reading Excuses Be Gone. And in this book, he gave a shout out to his daughter's handbag business called Urban Junket. And so I reached out to her. I wanted Wayne Dyer to hear that song Now still. So I reached out to her, knowing everyone who starts a business will always reply to everybody, all the mail they get. So I said, I'm a fan of your dad's, wrote this song called Now. Can you give it to him? And I also did this thing called United Breaks Guitars you might like. And she wrote back and said, United Breaks Guitars, I'm a huge fan of United Breaks Guitars. I live in San Diego, and of course, Taylor is made right near San Diego. And she said, my dad's coming in a couple of weeks, and I'd be happy to let him hear your song Now. And 2 weeks later, she reached back, and she said, Wayne Dyer is now a fan of United Breaks Guitars. No mention about Now at all. And she said, he thinks that this is a song about non-confrontation, when everyone else was saying this is about a guy taking on an airline. Wayne Dyer saw it from a different perspective, and he said, you should write a book about it. So if you want to call Reed Tracy, the publisher of Hay House Publishing, on this date and time, here's the number, and you can talk about that. So shortly after, I called Reed Tracy, and we talked for about a half an hour. My wife Jill was cooking supper. I went down to my office, and 30 minutes later, I came up, and she said, how'd that go? And I said, I got a book deal. As long as I could write a sample chapter and a good book outline, they would be inclined to publish the book. So, and that's what happened. So I ended up getting the book deal, and I got to meet Wayne Dyer. Louise Hay called me in my hotel at the first event where we were going to be all speaking together, and she pulled me down. There was, of course, a gaggle of people around Wayne, and she parted the seas, just pulled me in. Everyone came out and said, Wayne, this is Dave Carroll. And it was like he didn't really recognize me or anything. And she said, the guy with the United Breaks Guitars. And then he gave me a hug. And we did a couple of shows together, and it was fantastic. And then full circle, he did books, but he also did a couple of films. One was about the search for his father. And at the end of that, they used my song Now as the end credits. So I love the way that life has a way of connecting people if you're intentional about it without even knowing your plan, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of things to unpack there, Dave, as we start to wind down. But I think one thing is, you just said, you have to be flexible, because that journey you just took us on, I mean, you took us on that journey in about 2 minutes, but that journey in real time was a matter of years, and you never thought anything was going to come of it. And like you said, originally you thought, okay, the direction it's going to go is Eckhart Tolle and Oprah. And it wasn't meant to go that direction, but you had to be flexible and I mean, you probably didn't have any choice anyway, right? But what I'm saying is, the cool part is it still turned into something big. And a lot of times people would say, well, the Eckhart Tolle Oprah thing didn't work out, so clearly the universe wasn't working for me. But maybe it was never meant to be Eckhart Tolle Oprah. Maybe it was meant to be Wayne Dyer.
Yeah, and the part of the process I've learned through United Breaks Guitars and all sorts of things. It's always about the process and enjoying the process as you go along. And now the song has served me well at concerts. It has, sold CDs that people have said, this song has changed my life. And then after United Breaks Guitars went viral, I've sometimes wondered if maybe that didn't happen so that people could hear that song, because there have been fans that have bought my CD because of United Breaks Guitars, but then found that. And a great story of a woman who became a fan of United Breaks Guitars and ended up in her deathbed asking to have my song played, and her daughter put it on for her, and they closed their eyes, and when she opened her eyes, her mother had passed away, and she chose to listen to that song, I believe, when she did that. And there's power in that. So I'm pretty cool with I'd like the song to make $1 million, but I'm cool that the fact that it hasn't, because it's found its way. It's beyond money in many ways, and it's created meaning, deep meaning for people. And I can say that without bragging, because I don't feel I wrote the song. I feel like it came through me. It was a gift, and it was so easy to write. It happened just so very quickly that I can't almost take credit for it. So it's nice to have been a part of something like that. Well,
it's interesting you say that, because one direction I'd like to go now that you said that, before we wind down, is, as a musician, songwriter, and also a writer of books, people have asked me recently in interviews, like my latest book, how did you write it? And tell me about the writing process. And I said, I didn't write it. The book wrote me. But now I have a number of books out, and I can tell you the ones I wrote. Like, meaning I actually worked on one of them you were in, which was my earlier Conversations with series. And those books I wrote, like I remember writing them. I remember going, okay, what would go nice here? What would work here? But the book of Why and How, which you're also in, that book, I didn't write that book. That book wrote me. And I also had the same experience with certain songs I've written. Certain songs I've written, I can't even remember writing them. And I would write them, literally be writing them. I couldn't keep up. And everything rhymed and everything made sense. And I never said, what rhymes with this? But then I have other songs where I said, what rhymes with this? Has that been your experience as a writer as well? Like, do you have both experiences, or do you just have the ones that have written you?
Yeah, Now was one that just sort of kind of wrote itself. United Breaks Guitars, there were no limitations. I find a lot of times it's the limitations you put on yourself that stifle creativity. That I buy into this idea that there's this creative cloud out there, and all you have to do is open up a little hole for yourself and drink from it. And if you don't do that, then you're trying to find the hard way in, and it takes time to get through that, to get to the idea. So you make it hard on yourself. There's plenty of songs where I've tried to find the right word or try to get smart about it, but sometimes a simple word is just the perfect one and a simple message. So it's really about getting into a good heart space and letting it in rather than forcing it out.
Well, another a fellow Atlantic Canadian, Gordie Sampson, it's been a while since I interviewed him, but probably 2-3 years ago, the last time. And he's in Nashville 9 months a year writing music. And, one of the things I talked to him about is, do the songs write you? And it feels like some of them do. Like, for example, I think Jesus Take the Wheel was an example where I think that song kind of just came to him. But this guy, 40 hours a week, is writing music. Right. And so, there's no way that all the songs can come through you when you're meeting with 3 other musicians, or each come up with ideas. So, that's whenever I thought about his career, which I think is a great career if you like it, but it's actually the work of writing songs. Like, that's what he's doing. And right. So I think, he told me, he said, it's 9 to 5. He gets to work with his lunch pail and writes music. And so there's days that the music doesn't want to write. And there's other days where, he's sitting there going, what rhymes with this? And then there's other days where the song writes him. So I think it's kind of cool, because I've talked to people who said every song they write, it just feels like it goes through them. I've talked to other people who said they've never had that experience. And I think you and I, it sounds like we both had both experiences.
Yeah. And and the benefit is that the difference, right? So ideally, it should never feel like work. If it does, maybe you should question where you're going with the idea. And guys like Gordie Sampson, like you said, they're professionals. They do it for a living, and they have a different perspective. I don't think they're trying to write the song from their heart. I think they're trying to write a song in the service of the song, put their egos aside to come together. It's a different headspace.
Yeah, because 90% of those songs, they're not on that song at all. Like, they're writing it and they're releasing it to the world. It's a gift to somebody else. Where Gordie had his own career. some brilliant songs. Sunburn, one of my favorite songs, I think, Canadian songs ever. But yeah, most of the songs he's writing, as you said, it's in service of other people, both the listener and the artist he's writing it for. And people listening, if you haven't heard of Gordy Sampson, trust me, you've heard a Gordy Sampson song. I just said, When Jesus Take the Wheel. I mean, if you've heard Jesus Take the Wheel, you've heard Gordy Sampson, but he's written songs for Keith Urban, Faith Hill, on and on and on. Because he's in Nashville, majority of them will be country artists, but chances are if you turned on your radio, you've heard a Gordy Sampson song. And that's just I love that. It's a whole other side of the industry. When I was younger, I thought I wanted to be the songwriter in the basement. I didn't ever want to be on the stage. Yeah. And that was glamorous, the idea of just writing this song that went into the world and nobody even knew I wrote it. And so in a lot of ways, I envy that he's been able to build a career to that, because not many people can say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought the same thing too for a long time. And it's pretty cool when you hear other people talking about your song without knowing that you're there. So it's not just blowing smoke at you, that, someone really likes it, and to hear somebody else's perspective on how it's affected them in one way or another.
So Dave, the last thing I want to ask you is how we can learn more and connect with you. People haven't read your book yet, all that kind of stuff, how they can get access to the different things that you're doing. But I'd be remiss not to ask you, what do you think the future looks like for Dave Carroll? You've been on quite a unique journey. Do you have any things in the works, any crystal ball stuff where you think this might be what it looks like, or is it just going to play out how it's going to play out?
Well, because United Breaks Guitars is a pretty incredible story, and I've been a storyteller as a songwriter for 30 years now, I've decided to start getting into storytelling, workshopping, and teaching other people how to tell their stories personally or from brands, because it amazes me that a lot of people don't know the difference between a story and just facts and data. And there's ways of massaging things together to make it really interesting for other people so that you bring your best self forward. And it's pretty gratifying when you see somebody go from being uncomfortable about talking about who they are to being confident and compelling about who they can be or want to be. And that changes people's lives, I think. So I'm getting into that. I've written a kid's book called Tom the Tomato Plant. That's going to be an illustrated children's book, and just going through the illustration process now. So that'll be out in the next couple of months. And I'm writing songs for finishing up a recording project now for myself. And I'm still involved in the SaaS business, which is songwriting as a service, as I call it, and writing songs for people, individuals and companies to bring out the essence of their best selves, which I find really rewarding too. Amazing.
Well, you and I chatted about the tomato book, and I love it. I just think it's got big written all over it. So I think it's a really cool. Everything about your career to me is like, if somebody said, okay, this is the direction he's going to go now, nobody would guess that was the direction you're going to go now. Like, it feels like, I don't know about you, but like, how they show, we had somebody at our last Blue Talk at Harvard, and they said, and I know it's a common thing, like I've seen it before they said it, but they showed this image of what you think life should go like, and it's like a straight line, and then what life actually goes like on, and it's like, and that's what your life, it feels like, has been like. Your career's been like that. Yeah, and I've enjoyed it that way. I like going where it feels right. And the other thing I would add too is that I'm really big into the idea. My big takeaway with United Breaks Guitars now, after all this time, has been not that it was popular because we were connected, which is what I've been saying for years. That's the basis of it. But ultimately, I'm big into the idea of compassion now, and that compassion is something we should aspire to do, especially with the social disruptions we're seeing and the political issues, the division we're seeing. It's because there's a lack of compassion and ability to see ourselves in other people. So that's what I'm diving into now. Awesome. And I guess that the last part then is, with COVID and with everything that's happened, you being a live speaker, a live musician, have you been able to pivot? Like, have you been able to shift stuff up enough? Because that's obviously, it's really hitting people that are doing anything live in a big way. Yeah, so I'm trying to get used to that. This may be the new normal, and find better ways to present myself and better sound and lights and an atmosphere here that I'm working on. And yeah, I don't know, like for my entire life, I don't know what's going to happen next or how I'm going to land, but typically I've landed on my feet, so I'm going to keep coming with intention to brighten the feed, as they say, and that's what I'm focusing on. Awesome. Well, Dave Carroll, this has been an absolute pleasure. I knew it would be. I'm going to call it a to be continued. I do with most people, but I don't know how many interviews this is, so I know it's going to be a to be continued. But But Dave, where would people connect with you if they want to learn more, if they want to connect with you further? Is there a hub, or where would you normally send people?
Right to my website, davecarrollmusic.com. Dave Carroll Music, you got to put the music in there, .com.
Awesome. Well, like I say, Dave, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to let you go backstage. I'm going to say bye to everybody. But I hope you know how much I appreciate this, and I appreciate you. And I hope you know I'm going to continue to wave the flag for all the great things you're doing. I think I talked about United Breaks Guitars in one of my books. I know I'm not alone. I think I heard the number of it's almost 200 books that have shared the story now. But I also, as you know, I talk about you on stage. I share your story because I do believe in what you're doing. And I know you're a heart-centered person that's doing it for the right reasons. You have to be one of the nicest musicians and speakers in Canada. So, and that's saying something because there's a lot of nice Canadians. But you're right up there, Dave. So thank you for all the good things you're doing, and I will continue to wave the flag.
I want to say one thing about you too, that you've come a long way in your career. We sort of both started roughly around the same time, and you were just a guy from PEI I met that wanted to interview a bunch of people, and now you've interviewed everybody. So you're doing amazing stuff, and you're great. Everybody, great.
Thank you so much, Dave. It's so appreciated. Again, I appreciate you. I'll let you run. I will say good things about you, and I will continue to. And let's call it a to be continued, my friend.
You bet. See you, Corey.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave.
Yep.
Very cool. So, Dave Carroll, what a gem. And I have to say, such a great story, the United Breaks Guitars story. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do for sure. I will, I put the comment, or I put the link for the, let's see here. I'm going to try to put it in again in case the other one didn't take. Now I can play it without disrupting Dave. Didn't want to play it while he was on because I didn't want to throw him off and have something start playing. But if just in case the main one didn't play in the link I put, I'm going to post it now. And I was able to pause it there without it playing anyway, so it didn't end up playing. So let's see. So if the other link I put in the comments didn't work, you should be able to see the United Breaks Guitars video now in there. And if you can't see it because I post from YouTube, I will post from Facebook after this as well. But Dave Carroll, as I said, a gem of a person, doing amazing things, helping so many, one of the kindest people that I've run into and come across, and also having so many cool things happen that he also shares with other people. I talk often about enlightened superachievers, and people ask me, what does that term mean? And I'll say it's like what Zig Ziglar did. Zig Ziglar didn't just he used to say, see you at the top. He didn't just try to get to the top and say, I'll see you when you get there. He would try to push people up ahead of him. He would try to pull people up with them. So to me, an enlightened superachiever is people who help other people get to the top, whether it's because they're giving back of their time, their knowledge, what have you. And so Dave Carroll is one of those people. So, wow, what a day. Hopefully you guys took some knowledge you can use today, some mind seeds, if you will. I didn't ask Dave what his mind seed was, but I think he delivered a lot of them throughout. But hopefully you took some stuff you can take today and apply to your life and your business and your brand. I love this Flip Your Script virtual event because of the things that come out of the interviews and presentations, and also the great presenters that are so gracious to join us. So thank you for giving us a purpose. Thank you for joining us. What a great day. Like I say, we've had Lisa Wilson shared such a vulnerable story about the stuff that she's gone through, and even being vulnerable to say what's hard for her, for example, to eat a certain way, to not push herself too hard. But I feel like, we can all hear her story and be either inspired or maybe it's something we can relate to. And then Darlene came into it with a whole bunch of nuggets that you can actually apply in your life, strategy that you can apply in your life right away, almost instantly. And she also took us through a whole pattern of, if we use this stuff, it could change your business today. And a lot of practical stuff, figuring out where is your point where you bring on the most clients, so you can focus on that area. So again, such a powerful business message that she shared and business strategy. And then, like I say, bringing things to a close with Dave Carroll, sharing a powerful story. I mean, I don't know anybody who couldn't get inspired by the United Breaks Guitar story and also realize how important synchronicity is. I mean, if you think that all those things that happened with Dave were coincidences, I don't know what to tell you, because I don't know if the odds of all those things just happening as a coincidence. So Dave, obviously his karma is good, but I believe what he said is that when things happened, he jumped on them. So when synchronicities happened, he jumped on them. For instance, the opportunity to speak. He jumped at the opportunity to speak, even though he had never spoken before. The Hay House book deal, he didn't say, no, I'm not going to reach out to Reed Tracy. I will later on when I'm ready or comfortable. And so he acted on these things. So the law of action, which I talk about a lot. But by acting on these synchronicities that were happening, he created more of them, in my opinion. And so hopefully you can take away from Dave's story the power of what can happen if you take action, if you take the right action, if you're open to what can happen, if you're flexible about what's coming your way, if you actually put it out to the universe and trust that it's going to take care of itself, it'll take care of itself. I mean, how cool is that he wrote the song that he intended for either Eckhart Tolle or Wayne Dyer, and he thought even before United Break the Guitars happened that this song was going to find its way to Oprah. That didn't happen, but it ended up appearing, as he said, in Wayne Dyer, the last documentary they made about his life, the In Search for His Father documentary, which, of course, you can check that out if you want to hear Dave's song now. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thanks to my talented co-host, Elise Rothman. I know Elise was backstage today, couldn't be on with us today, but she was backstage. She was bringing her energy here in spirit and helping people backstage, and also was helping any presenters that were having any hiccups, jumping on to the StreamYard platform. So thank you so much, Elise. I salute you. I believe Elise will be back joining us tomorrow. And we do have, as we mentioned yesterday, a special guest tomorrow, so we'll go a little bit longer. We have Dr. Patrick Porter. I can't wait for you to hear his story and learn from him as well. So thank you so much. I salute you. I appreciate you. As you know, you give me a purpose, so thank you for doing that. For bLU Talks, I'm Corey Poirier. Going to sign off, but I'll say if you want to know more about bLU Talks, go to bluetalks.com, and on that page you'll find the link to the YouTube channel. You'll find the link to grab a copy of the book if you want to order yourself a copy of the book, or find the link to the podcast as well if you want to check out the podcast. And there is a new video up today on the YouTube channel, Tim Allison's talk about why we should say screw the naysayers, and then also his the audio version of his talk is up on iTunes and other podcasting platforms right now. Thank you, everybody. Again, I appreciate you, and I will see you same time tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Talk to you then.